Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto befriends Sasuke and Sakura at an early age by an act of fate part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Kanehigakure, 1800 hours. It was autumn in Kanehigakure, the village hidden among the leaves, and the village itself was feeling a faux peace after the attack 7 years ago. Sure, to the untrained eye, it looked peaceful, but that was simply not the case. You see, 7 years ago, the village was mysteriously attacked on the 10th of October by the Kyubi no Yuko, nine-tailed demon fox. It was a truly fearsome creature, decimating Konoha's shinobi in seconds as if they were just chew toys. The fox seemed unstoppable until the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, stood up to face the seemingly invincible foe. However, as strong as the Yoname was, even he was not a match for the beast itself. So, he took the next best action. He sealed it into a small boy. That boy was his own son, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Minato wanted the villagers to see Naruto as a living martyr, a person whose sacrifice kept the Kyubi at bay and allowed them all to live. The villagers, still suffering from the psychological trauma of the attack, chose to ignore the request. While some did hate the boy, they weren't stupid enough to try and attack him, or even call him names. They used what psychologists called subtle cruelty. They didn't openly say they didn't like the boy, but their actions spoke a hell of a lot louder than anything they could say. Naruto wasn't stupid, far from it, in fact. He knew damn well what the civilian population of Konoha thought of him. So far, he still hasn't deduced a reason yet. Until then, he'd settle on pulling pranks and making a name for himself. Too bad he always got caught like now. Damn it! Naruto, I'm going to make you suffer for this, Iruka said, chasing the young boy who was laughing hysterically. Iruka was a chunin at the Konoha Ninja Academy in his mid-20s, of average height, brown hair that tied into a spiky bun and a scar on his cheek. He was the only who actually, deep down, liked Naruto. The other teachers only tolerated his presence for long as they absolutely needed to. Iruka frowned at this, but said nothing most of the time. You're going to have to catch me, Iruka-sensei, Naruto yelled back, laughing as he jumped from building to building. Iruka smirked and made a detour, adjacent of Naruto's position. Naruto looked back and smiled. He finally lost him. Ha! I knew he couldn't catch me, Naruto said with a grin as he landed on a branch to relax. You're good, Naruto, but not that good, a voice said from behind. Naruto's grin turned to a mock frown. He turned around and gave Iruka a nervous glance. He was giving a stern, but caring look to the young Jinchuriki. Iruka dropped down to sit with Naruto on the branch he was on. Naruto, he began in a scolding tone, you've got to stop pulling all these pranks. It's only giving you negative press. Naruto scowled, which Iruka flinched at. Before, Naruto just listened to his lectures and simply nodded in understanding. This was the first time he gave an indication that he disagreed heavily with what he said. Tell me, Iruka-sensei. If you were a social outcast where everyone hated you for a reason even you, yourself, did not, wouldn't you try to do anything to get attention? Tell me that. Naruto yelled unintentionally. Iruka balked at his tone of voice and gave him a solemn expression in return. Naruto looked smug. Exactly. You can't. So don't try and act like you know what I'm going through, because you don't, he replied bitterly as he jumped from the tree to the ground. Iruka looked on and finally found his voice, shouting, Hey! Naruto, where are you going? Naruto didn't even turn around to look at him. He just kept walking on down the silent streets of Konoha. A place where I can think in peace, he simply stated. Iruka frowned and was tempted to follow him. No, what am I thinking? That's likely not such a good idea in the first place. He'll come around tomorrow, I hope. The dolphin sighed again as he took a last look at Naruto's retreating form and then vanished in a swirl of leaves. Naruto continued walking on, his destination even unknown to himself. Little did he know that that destination would cause ripple effects that would change shinobi history forever. Near the same time, sleep didn't come easily for Sasuke Uchiha, youngest of the Uchiha clan. It wasn't exactly surprising considering the events that happened just a few hours ago. After all, it wasn't every day that a kid who tried his best learned that his father was not only disappointed in him, but wanted little to do with his son. In a way, it really wasn't all that surprising to the young Uchiha. It explained much about why Fugaku, his father, ignored him unless absolutely necessary, to favor his prodigious older brother, Itachi. At least he knew the truth, and for that, Sasuke was happy, grateful, even. That described his mood, but not exactly his state of mind. No, to describe that, you'd have to look up the words pissed in a dictionary and in a thesaurus for all its related synonyms. He looked out from his bed to look at the alarm clock. It wasn't being blocked by the sun as it was almost night time, but he could clearly see it was 7, which made him grunt. The more Sasuke thought about it, the more agitated he became. Not at Itachi, no. Hell, not even at his father. He was mostly angry at himself for being so weak. Then, in his mind, his father wouldn't be as angry and disappointed with him. Sasuke sat up and punched the wall with the side of a balled-up right fist in anger. You know the worst part of it all? They knew. They fucking knew. The clan as a whole knew the whole time that his father had little interest in him. Yet they kept feeding him lies saying that his brother was growing up and Fugaku needed to help him become a man. It's all a lie! Sasuke screamed in thought. He now knew the truth. All Fugaku wanted to do was train Itachi so that he could one day be Hokage and the Uchiha could dominate the village. Not everything is all about power. Sasuke thought angrily, knowing no idea how ironic his thoughts were. Regardless of that little tidbit of information, his father still treated him like trash. As if he were nothing compared to his brother. Granted, that was true in shinobi terms, but he deserved some attention too. I need some training to do just to let off some steam, the young Uchiha said to himself, turning to get out of bed. He made up his bed knowing full well it would get messy again when he came back. Looking in his dresser, he found his trademark shorts and, with a bit of effort, put them on. Sasuke already had on a shirt, so all he needed to do was find his sandals. Sasuke looked under his bed and frowned when he didn't find him. He grunted, irritated yet again. "Mom," he called out, "have you seen my sandals anywhere?" There was no answer for a few seconds until, "Yeah, they're in the kitchen by the fridge," Mikoto called back, going back to washing the dishes from dinner. Sasuke mentally slapped himself. Of course his sandals wouldn't be by his room. He always left them in the kitchen. "Guess today is not my day," Sasuke said to himself, heading toward the kitchen. He ran past his father's study who was, of course, talking to Itachi. Sasuke just rolled his eyes and kept going. Mikoto turned around suddenly at Sasuke's entrance, and her hands were dripping wet from dealing with dish detergent and soapy water. "Where are you headed off to all of a sudden?" she asked curiously. Sasuke just shrugged as he put on both pairs. "I honestly have no clue, but I need to go somewhere to clear my head, okay?" Sasuke responded, taking a pack of shuriken and kunai from their racks. Mikoto frowned at her son's choice of words and tone of voice. "You sure you don't want to talk about it?" "No, Mom," he declared with finality, hopefully brooking no argument on the matter. He left out the door without another word. Mikoto sighed again and turned off the kitchen faucet. She'd do the rest later. Right now, she just needed to think. Sasuke sped off through the village, hoping to go somewhere that he could get some peace from all the pressures he had to deal with. "Man, I hope I'll feel better after tonight," Sasuke uttered rather sadly. Sasuke would have no idea on what was going to happen to him. Haruno residence, 1830 hours. Sakura Haruno wasn't what you would call the average girl. She was intelligent, nice, thoughtful, and most of all, beautiful in her own way. Sure, many picked on her because she had a huge forehead, but even the most cynical person couldn't deny that the girl was pretty for her age. Throughout the day, she talked with many girls, smiled, and played just like any other normal girl. That was what they all thought. They didn't know the truth, however. What did Sakura have to hide when she was just a normal girl, after all? That fallacy couldn't be farther from the reality. There was a huge banging on Sakura's door as she subconsciously cowered in fear on her bed, using the sheets as if they'll somehow protect her. "Oh, Sakura, why don't you open the door for your father, why don't ya?" a sly voice said on the other side that sent chills down her spine. Still, however, she refused silently. In truth, the man on the other side of the door wasn't her real father, but he had been part of the family since as long as she could remember, and most figured she might as well called him Dad. Sakura would have none of that cause. "I said open this goddamn door," he yelled in anger, trying to literally bust down the lock. With each and every slam, Sakura got more and more terrified. "Tetsuya, leave me alone!" Sakura shouted, finally getting the courage to speak. She developed a lump in her throat as the words left her mouth, fearful of the consequences. She waited and waited. Nothing came. Not a sound, not a bash on the door, nothing. Sakura sniffed, and dried her tears with her right arm. Thank Kami, she thought, thankful that Tetsuya had decided to leave her alone. Her joy was cut short when her door was slammed open and hit the wall so hard that it left a dent in the back wall about 3 inches deep. Tetsuya looked at her with a mixture of both anger and a slight look of when a predator caught sight of its prey. Tetsuya was tall at about 6 feet, 2 inches, had short wavy hair, a muscular build, and had a nicely trimmed beard to complement his naturally black eyes. On the outside, people knew Tetsuya as a normal man with high goals in life. He was a successful ninja whose career got cut short due to an injury to his legs. Even though it healed eventually, he had no desire to go back to a profession that almost killed him. Unknown to many of the populace, he was respected by those who did know him. What they didn't know was that Tetsuya had a certain taste for women. Particularly, these women weren't really women at all. They barely qualified as girls. Yes, Tetsuya had a secret that he planned to take with him to the grave. He had a taste and attraction to young females, particularly those under the age of 11. He knew he was sick, but he honestly didn't care. It turned him on, and he was going to live out each and every one of his fantasies. Right now, the sight of Sakura trembling in fear at the sight of his mere presence turned Tetsuya on in ways that no psychologist or psychiatrist could explain. He took a slow step toward her. You've been very naughty, Sakura-chan," he jeered with an evil glint in his eyes. Tears once again started to form in her eyes as she tried to say something, but her primal fear took over and she was shaken to the core. The way he said her name, and the added honorific sickened her. She may have been young, but even she could tell what this man no monster was doing wasn't just wrong. It was flat out disgusting. For being so naughty, Sakura-chan, I may have to punish you to keep you in line, he purred, smirking as Sakura's eyes widened and she shook her head rapidly in defiance. This only made Tetsuya smile even bigger, if such an act was possible. "PL, please don't," Sakura stuttered out through tears. What she got in response was a backhand that sent her flying off her bed and on the floor. On the way, she hit the lamp on the dresser, causing it to fall down with her. The lamp inside shattered, causing the room to darken a bit, but thankfully, none of the glass hit Sakura. That was the last thing on her mind at the moment, as she looked up at Tetsuya's apathetic eyes. "Shut up! What did I tell you about backsassing me?" he roared in fury as he forced the pink-haired girl to stand up. Sakura didn't even bother trying to get free. It was hopeless, as he was far stronger than she ever would be. She looked him with a pleading look. Tetsuya gently sat her on her bed, which surprised the hell out of the girl. He rubbed her soothingly, but Sakura could tell he was getting off in a sick, twisted way from touching her. There, I won't punish you," he said in an obviously faked caring tone. "In fact, I want to make you feel better, isn't that right?" he asked in a low moan as he ran his hands over her practically non-existent, understandable, due to her age. Sakura swallowed hard and bit her lip to avoid from bursting into tears right then and there. Tetsuya lifted Sakura's shirt and gently rubbed her stomach, which sent shivers down her spine. Not from pleasure, no, far from it, in fact. It was because it was extremely uncomfortable. He used both his hands to make her stand up, which she didn't resist, knowing that it wouldn't be the smartest of ideas to do so. Stealthily slipping his hands through her skirt and panties, he slowly did what he normally did. He felt up on her buttocks. This continued for a good 30 seconds, but to Sakura, it felt like an eternity of shame, violation, and downright humiliation. Without warning, he pushed her back on her bed. Now, to try something new, he noted with a glee. He stuck his hand up her skirt from the front. Sakura's eyes widened in shock. He never went there before. Tetsuya snaked his hands up her thigh until he found a panty line. And then he found it, and stuck in his heinous digits. By now, she was openly weeping. He was messing with what was considered sacred to a female. All for some sick game that he played with her. "By the kami, anybody please, help me," she pleaded to the higher powers, begging for a miracle. By a rare stroke of luck, she heard the door open and thought she was saved. Tetsuya, on the other hand, suddenly reared back his hand in a feigning wince and shouted in mock agony. What the hell, Sakura? I was just trying to help," he yelled in pain. Seconds later, Sakura's mom came in. "What the hell is going on here?" an average-sized woman who looked near identical to Sakura demanded as she placed down some groceries on the table near her. "Masaki, your daughter hit me when I was trying to fix a lamp that she broke," he said maliciously. Sakura's eyes filled with tears. This bastard was almost caught, and now he was blaming her? Sakura looked pleadingly in her mother's eyes, but the look she gave her shattered that notion in an instant. "So, you little wench, after all Tetsuya does for you for us, you go and hit him when he tries to help you? Why, you ungrateful little brat!" she bellowed in a chiding fashion. She wouldn't have noticed the victorious, smug look on Tetsuya's face, even in a million years. But Mom, Sakura was cut off with a smack to the cheek. "Don't you give me any buts, missy! I'm finally happy after your father's death, and you're destroying whatever chance I have by being an obnoxious brat." With each and every word, Sakura's shoulders sunk and she felt like curling up into a ball, as if that was the only thing protecting her from her mother's cruelty. Her mother only scoffed and affectionately took Tetsuya by the hand. "Tetsuya and I are going out, and I expect this house to be clean when we get back. Is that understood?" With that said, she went from cruel to playful in an instant with her boyfriend as they made their way out the door. Masaki slammed the door shut, causing a hanging picture to dislodge from the wall. As if time stood still for the cerise-locked girl, the portrait's glass covering cracked and shattered upon impact, liberating the contents within. An image of the family of three with carefree smiles under a cherry blossom tree in bloom. Sakura did what any girl would do in that situation. She bolted, from her house. She didn't know where she was going, but at the moment, she didn't give a damn. All that mattered in her mad dash was that she had to leave, and she had to leave now. Konoha Forests, eastern outskirts, 1900 hours. Naruto walked peacefully in the calm forest near the outskirts of Konohagakure. This was a place of extreme tranquility, peace, and relaxation. Near him was a small wooden shack that looked like an outdoor bathroom. Naruto paid it no mind as he sat cross-legged in the large clearing. "Okay, I wonder if I can try this meditation thing," Naruto said to himself as he breathed in and out. Sitting up, he closed his eyes and began to do. On second thought, he had absolutely no idea how to meditate. From the movies and books, you sat in some stupid cross-legged position, close your eyes, and do something like centering yourself or something like that. Regardless, he absolutely had no clue what that meant, as he had only seen it done once. He had no real clue at how he was supposed to. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted from what sounded like a low grumble from the back of his head. Without warning, There was a sharp pain in both his head and stomach simultaneously. He reared over in pain and thought he was under attack. Looking around, he realized that he was alone. Naruto saw a red aura envelop his body and his mind drifted into unconsciousness. The first thing Naruto noticed was that it was nearly dark and the only indication of light was a neon light that was at the end of wherever he was. The place practically reeked of fear or something that sought to induce the negative emotion. If there was a smell that could be associated with fear, there was no doubt in Naruto's mind that this would be it. The blonde noticed that he was ankle-deep in water. Grunting, he got up, ignoring the smell of what seemed to be sewer water. Strangely enough, that was exactly where he was. Down the small corridor, a miasma of green neon lights exposed endless pipes and conduit lines. These pipes have to lead somewhere, the blonde deduced as he walked along the barren pathways in the stinking liquid. The light at the end turned red, and at the end of the path was the last thing Naruto expected: a gate. Yes, it was, without question, a gate which had intricate patterns carved along the bars, and in the middle was a flimsy piece of paper that had the kanji for seal on it. Inside the bars was pitch black, and as good as Naruto's vision was, seeing things at 20 feet where the average human only saw at 10 feet, he couldn't make out anything. What the hell is this gate here for? Naruto asked to no one in particular. That particular quandary was quickly answered. An absolutely terrifying image made itself known, and as much the blonde wanted to back away, his fear was taking control of him. Naruto and the whatever it was stared at each other for what seemed like an eternity, and then some. Then it did something he didn't expect: it laughed. It was deep and menacing and quite possible the most evil laugh that Naruto had ever heard. Naruto gulped and tried to stand his ground and failed miserably. Well, I finally get to meet my vessel after all these years, it spoke in the same deep voice it had laughed in previously. Vessel? What the hell are you talking about? Naruto asked as his confusion took over his fear. At this, the entity bellowed in laughter yet again. So you truly don't know, do you? It is I, the Kyuubi no Yuko, strongest of all the 9 Bijou. The Carmine Beast spoke proudly. Naruto's eyes almost burst out of his skull. No, it can't be. The fox was supposed to be dead. No way. The fox was killed by the Yondaime Hokage 8 years ago. There's no possible way it could be still alive. Naruto retorted back in absolute denial. The blonde kid swore to himself that he heard a snort release from the mammoth creature's imposing frame. First of all, I'm not in it, you insolent brat. I'm a male, just like you are, except smarter. But to rebut your fallacy, let me ask you this. What do you know about the Bijou? The Kyuubi asked as in a sly tone as if he couldn't wait to bring reality crashing down on the boy. Naruto shrugged. They're like these huge animals, powerful, and can't be killed by natural means. They can only be sealed. To where was this distrustful entity directing? Do you know the day of when I attacked? You supposedly attacked on the 10th of October, 8 years ago, Naruto replied, still not getting the entire picture. The Kyuubi only grinned wider. When's your birthday? October 10, Naruto stopped mid-sentence. It suddenly dawned on him as he dropped to his knees in shock. No, it can't be, he chanted in denial, holding his golden locks with his clenched hands. The Kyuubi laughed yet again. So, my vessel finally understands why he's so hated. He snarled in glee as Naruto soaked in the revelation. Everything started to fall into place. The stairs, the subtle third degree, everything was all because the Yondaime had sealed the Kyuubi within him and damning him to a life of hell. Right then and there, as liquid saline descended from his cheeks in anguish, he wanted to just crawl up in a ball and die. Pick yourself off the ground, and stop your blubbering. It's unsightly, even to my own tastes, the Kyuubi grumbled in a serious manner. Naruto was surprised. There was no malice in his voice. What the hell do you mean? I just found out that I was cursed to. The fox cut him off. Shut up, he roared, silencing Naruto almost immediately. You and I are going to have a long chat, so you need to shut the hell up and listen to what I have to say. Is that understood? Naruto only nodded dumbly, trying to find his voice, but grimaced at the long chat. Naruto wasn't known to have the biggest attention span. The fox's eyes seemed to lighten up and they didn't seem as menacing as before, which caused Naruto to relax a bit more. For starters, he began, we are in your mind. Don't worry about time, as time in here is much faster than the outside. You shouldn't have to worry about anyone attacking you or us, rather. Naruto bobbed his head as the fox sat down on his. Naruto tried to remember, haunches as if fully at rest. Now that you actually are aware of my existence, I believe it's time we made the best of the predicament in which we have found ourselves, to put it lightly, before I have the luxury of thinking over the things I'd do to Konoha, if I ever got released. However, now I don't have that time, seeing as you know me now. You'll call on my power, both consciously and subconsciously. As such, I say we need to make a deal or several. Deals? What kind of deals? Naruto asked quizzically, with a twinge of skepticism. The Kyuubi brought down his nose so it was close to Naruto's face, which kind of intimidated him. But the fox didn't need to know that. Simple. I know more about you than you likely know about yourself. Naruto frowned at the cryptic response. That didn't answer his question. I have had much time to observe your life in this village. The villagers don't attack you, but they try to wear you down psychologically by excluding you from social events, shooing their children away, and any other things that would bring trauma to any normal boy. Naruto's face went sad for a bit as he realized everything that was said was the absolute truth. But you're not a normal boy, are you? You're resilient and you've never given up, despite what these pitiful humans have tried doing to you, the Kyuubi praised. Yes, I know this. Get to the point. What deals are you talking about? Naruto inquired yet again. The Kyuubi slammed his tail on the walls of his cage, causing Naruto to fall on his buttocks. What did I tell you? Shut up and listen. I need to give you background on the deals I will be making, because otherwise it will end up confusing you. Or I could just send you back and not do anything to benefit you or your future career as a shinobi, he uttered nonchalantly. No. Please continue, Naruto said as fast he could. The Kyuubi smirked, triumphant in his small victory. Good boy. You're learning, he praised as he continued. First off, let me ask you this. Do you have any clue what a cognitive chakra suppression seal is? He asked, knowing full well what the answer was. Naruto's face remained blank. Even though he knew, the fox still sighed. Okay, a bit of exposition for you, if you will, he said, taking a huge breath. When I was first sealed into you, I noticed that, consistently, a small, almost insignificant, amount of chakra was constantly being drained from me. At first, I thought the seal was doing something to me, but then, I realized that it was integrating your energy and mine into your chakra coils. Naruto gulped as he took this in. He would reserve judgment to the situation at hand until the fox finished. To make it short, the chakra drain was due to what's called a cognitive chakra suppression seal, or CCS for short. I have absolutely no idea of why it was used on you, and considering the circumstances, it'd be downright foolish to do so, the Kyuubi explained. The purpose of the seal is twofold. Its primary purpose is just as the name suggests. It restricts your ability to think, to reason, to ascertain, to adapt. Everything. From what I've observed, even with it on, you still had the ability to pick up on things that the villagers were doing to you, among other things. I imagine that, when the CCS is removed, your cognitive ability will increase tenfold. You may not be a genius, but you'll be one of the best, the fox concluded, baring his sharp fangs into a pretty gruesome smile. Aside from being totally on edge, Naruto grinned at the prospect of becoming smarter, as he put it in his own words. So, what are we waiting for then? Why do we? Kyuubi held up a paw to indicate that he needed to remain quiet and attentive. Naruto reluctantly did so. Be patient, kid. I'm getting to that. Anyway, the second thing about the suppression seal is that it needs a constant source of chakra to be maintained. That's where I come in. I have nearly limitless chakra, and as such, by my calculations, the suppression seal would feed off my chakra for at least 14 centuries, before it can't drain anymore. You're probably wondering why I couldn't just blow up the seal immediately after I discovered it, right? Naruto nodded, indicating he had been wondering that throughout his explanations. Simply put, the sealer put backup seals where the only way for the seal to be released is for your consent to have it released. Sounds crazy, I know, but the sealer likely didn't count on me knowing about seals and me actually telling you about them. Here's what I'm offering. In exchange for me, and technically you, removing the CCS, you will allow me at times to stretch my legs, so to speak, as in give you freedom? Do you think I'm stupid, F? He cut him off again. No, I couldn't get free using that method anyway. Even if I could, my power would be greatly reduced, so there really wouldn't be much point to it anyway. But basically, all you need to do is find a wild fox, catch it, and then transfer my consciousness into it. You won't have to worry about me escaping. After a certain time limit, my awareness will automatically transfer back behind this cage, unfortunately. The demonic vulpine bit back his venom. Naruto thought about it for a minute. On one hand, he could be lying and totally making up everything he was telling him, but then, what did the fox have to lose? If he read between the creature's words, he implied that if he died, then he would cease to exist as well. Naruto simply hummed before making a clear judgment call. I agree to your terms, Kyuubi, Naruto declared after some time, which caused the fox to grin rather maliciously. Very well, but I warned you ahead of time that it may cause you pain, the Kyuubi advised, so the boy wouldn't think he was tricking him. Naruto shrugged. He kind of figured that would be the case. Screw it, Kyuubi. I fully give you permission to unlock and destroy the suppression seal, Naruto asserted. That was all Kyuubi needed before his chakra surged through Naruto and the sewer of his mind. Naruto left his mind before pain even had time to register within. XXXXX. Naruto's vision blurred as he was still in the same spot he was previously before the Kyuubi sucked him into his mindscape. He shook his head and his vision returned to normal. Something felt odd. Yes, truly odd, yet also amazing at the same time. It was just as Kyuubi said. His mind felt clearer, sharper, and far more in tune with his environment. He heard the sound of shuriken whizzing the distance to hit stationary targets. His interest piqued. Naruto decided to head to the source of the noise. When he walked up to a clearing, adjacent to his position, he saw a boy about his age throwing shuriken and kunai. There were 12 targets, and the boy hit 8 out 12. The boy grunted in anger. Damn it! I'll never get to Itachi's level. he yelled in frustration. Naruto frowned as he walked up towards him. You know, your wrists weren't all that correct when you threw them. That's why you only hit 8, Naruto uttered coolly. Sasuke whipped his head around and gave a neutral glance at the newcomer. Who might you be? Sasuke asked, turning around. The name's Naruto Uzumaki and I could show you a trick or two, Naruto said as he offhandedly picked up some shuriken. He adjusted his wrist and threw all 5 of them. All 5 were on target, bullseye. Naruto smiled triumphantly while Sasuke looked amazed. Whoa, how did you do that? Sasuke asked, feeling a bit jealous. Naruto smiled and picked up the remaining shuriken and handed them back to the dark-haired boy. Now copy my wrist like this, he explained, showing him. Sasuke copied his movements down to the finest of details. You want a quick flicking motion and then let them fly. On Naruto's command, Sasuke released the shuriken, and, just like Naruto, he struck the dead center. Sasuke's mouth was agape. He did it. He did it, thanks. My name's Sasuke Uchiha. It's a pleasure to meet you, Naruto-san, Sasuke said, smiling and shaking Naruto's hand. Pleasure's all mine, Naruto shouted out, grinning. Was this going to be his first friend? By the gods, he hoped so. By the way, how did you get so good at throwing shuriken? Sasuke asked curiously. Naruto thought about it. To be honest, he wasn't so sure himself. Actually, I just tried that today, Naruto responded, rubbing the back of his head in mock embarrassment. Sasuke looked at him incredulously. No way. Yep, I think I remember reading it in a book. I guess I just applied the principles here, Naruto explained, and Sasuke just nodded. The raven-haired Uchiha was about to say something else when they both heard someone crying. About 15 meters away from Naruto and Sasuke's position, Sakura ran outside of the built pathways of the forest with one goal: to get away. Get away from the pain. Get away from the abuse. The fact that her mother took Tetsuya's side over her own pained her heart in ways no tongue on earth could explain. She hugged herself tightly as she sunk to her knees as tears flowed freely once again. There was a small puddle left over from the rain on the previous night. She looked at her reflection as she watched her face change from anger, grief, bitterness, and back again. For a brief moment, she could have sworn she saw Tetsuya with a cruel smirk on his face. She balled up a fist and slammed the puddle, breaking his reflection. Sakura was startled by a sudden movement she felt. Sakura didn't know it yet, but her shinobi skills were already developing right then, even though she still wasn't to be enrolled in the academy, like Naruto and Sasuke, for another 6 months or so. Who's there? Sakura managed to squeak out, stuttering the first part of her question. From their hiding places, Sasuke and Naruto emerged with noticeable frowns on their faces. Sakura subconsciously backed away. Naruto held up his hands. Hey, don't worry. We won't hurt you, he promised while walking up to the sniffling girl. Sasuke sighed and followed Naruto. What's wrong? Are you hurt? Naruto asked comfortingly as he kneeled down to her level. Sakura could practically feel the sincerity in his voice. It was as if he were an angel sent down from the heavens. Granted, she probably was grossly over-exaggerating, but she was 8, for crying out loud. A sexually abused 8-year-old, but the core naive personality was still there. I don't know, she began hesitantly. Naruto touched her hand soothingly, but Sakura instantly balked under the brush of his fingers. She had been violated just hours ago, and she was not ready to be touched just yet. Sasuke frowned a bit. Hey, don't be afraid. We're here to help. We won't hurt you, Sasuke's right. We're your friends, Naruto said, somehow pulling off a half-smile, half-frown. Friends? How can we be? She was easily cut off by the raven-haired boy. That doesn't matter, Sasuke said as he shook his head in the negative, knowing what she was about to ask. We know that you're hurting, and we won't stand by and let you just sit there and cry a river. Sasuke wouldn't admit it, but he felt damn good saying that. For once, his life was looking up instead of the constant put-downs from his father. You really mean that? Sakura asked disbelievingly. Her distrust was breaking down. Not completely, but it was getting there, albeit slowly. Naruto smiled fully. Yeah, we do. My name's Naruto Uzumaki, and this, he pointed to the other kid in his company, is Sasuke Uchiha. I could have introduced myself, Sasuke muttered, but Naruto must have not heard him. Naruto held out a hand, hoping for Sakura to take it. He waited, but it never came. The forest remained desolately silent. All that could be heard were the sniffs from the cherry blossom. Hey, are you? Naruto and Sasuke started simultaneously, before they were caught off guard by Sakura hugging them both tightly with either arm on their respective right and left sides. Sakura's head, however, was buried into Naruto's chest. Naruto turned to Sasuke. Okay, pretty boy, what did you do? Me? Ugh, yes you're the only other guy here, right? Sasuke said nothing. Unless you were mistaken for a girl in your younger years, Naruto snickered. Sasuke was about to retort before Sakura whimpered. Naruto, Sasuke, thank you, Sakura uttered as she let tears of joy flow down her cheeks. Naruto and Sasuke let out a small smile as they hugged her back in a small group embrace. From here on out we get stronger together, Naruto declared, to which Sasuke nodded. No matter what happens, we always will have each other, Sasuke added. Sakura, would you like to become a ninja with us, to get stronger? Me a shinobi? Sakura asked incredulously. Truth be told, the thought of being a shinobi never even occurred to her until, literally, right then. Naruto nodded. Yeah, like the three of us could be like the super cool ninja 3 of awesomeness, he said dramatically, which got him chuckles from the other two. You know, I never really thought about it, until now, Sakura admitted. Naruto grinned, inwardly elated that she had finally stopped crying. But since meeting the two of you, I think I might want to do it. To protect myself seeing the confused looks, she added, I'll tell you when I'm ready. The blonde and raven-haired boys nodded in acceptance. Naruto had decided then he wouldn't tell the two about the Kyuubi until much later. So, you accept? Sasuke inquired, smirking. Sakura grinned back at him. I never turned down a challenge, cha! Sakura declared with gusto. Ah, hell yeah! Naruto yelled. His mood reverted back to hyper, despite his increased intelligence. Alright, can you guys meet me at the library tomorrow morning? We can start preparing for the academy early, Sasuke suggested. Sakura and Naruto nodded. Sounds great. What time? Sakura asked. Does 9 sound good to you? Sasuke questioned, to which Sakura smiled. Naruto deadpanned. 9? Are you kidding me? I'm still in bed by then. He groaned. Sasuke clucked his teeth. Suck it up, Naruto. Early bird catches the worm, he countered. Naruto pouted. Oh well. Screw it then, good, because I bet I can learn faster than both of you. Sakura bet. Oh really? Care to wager that? Naruto said, grinning playfully. We'll discuss the terms tomorrow, Sakura spoke while keeping a cool smirk displayed on her visage. Sasuke put his hand in the middle, which Naruto and Sakura instinctively put their hands on top. Friends? The Uchiha asked. Friends, the other two announced at the same time. They broke and turned to 3 different directions. Neither of them could wait until morning. Unknown location, summoning dimension. 3 extremely large figures were watching the exchange with extreme interest. One figure moved from the shadows, identifying itself as a large silver and black serpent. It had 2 tails that split in the middle and 4 bat-like wings. The other 2 figures were only seen by their eyes, which were a blood red and light silver. Well, Bahamut, it seems these 3 may prove most interesting summoners to our respective clans, the figure with red eyes spoke in a deep voice. Yes, Zelos. They seem to incorporate the traits of all 3 of us, the one known as Bahamut responded. He turned to the one with silver eyes. Bayako, what do you think? The Sakura girl, she intrigues me, I feel drawn to her, Bayako cryptically answered. I feel the same about the Uchiha. He doesn't seem to have the typical arrogance of his clan, because otherwise there's no way in hell I'd let him sign my contract, Zelos spat in disgust. Truth be told, he hated all of the Uchiha brats. Except for, obviously, Sasuke himself. Naruto, the holder of the 9 tails, he's perfect for me. However, we can't contact them now. They are much too young, and they couldn't handle us until at best they were 15 or 16, depending on how fast they grow. The other 2 nodded. Then it is settled. I shall allow in 4 years' time to allow Sakura Haruno be the holder of my contract, Bayako proudly proclaimed. I shall allow Sasuke Uchiha in 4 years' time to wield the power of my contract, Zelos uttered with a strong determination. I, Bahamut, King of the Dragons, shall allow Naruto Uzumaki in 4 years' time to wield the power of the dragons. He roared. A light glowed in the air, signifying the declarations. I shall see you in 4 years, my friends, Bahamut said. As shall we, they responded simultaneously. With that said, Zelos vanished in a plume of smoke, Bayako vanished by turning into water, and Bahamut vanished with a gust of wind. It was settled. 3 friends were single-handedly going to bring a revolution to the shinobi world. Their legends were now starting. Naruto's apartment, 0830 hours. Naruto stood wide awake on his bed. He was watching the ceiling fan spin counterclockwise, and its sound was the only noise in the entire complex. His hands were on the back of his head as his bright cerulean eyes pierced through the building, as if he could see all things now. Normally, Naruto would have woken up very cranky and, honestly, not really feeling the day ahead of him, as it was almost the same bullshit every day. Not today, however. Naruto, for the first time in years practically, was smiling. Not one of those plastered grins he used around Iruka-sensei, the old man Hokage, and the village in general. No, this was a true, honest Amaterasu smile. He had thought he had become Fortune's fool when he learned of the existence of the Kyuubi. But in an almost less than an hour, he not only turned it into an advantage, he got new friends to boot. He sat up in an upright position, grinning from ear to ear. Everything is so much clearer now. It's amazing. I can calculate plans in my head in mere seconds where I used to not even think about using strategy. This is truly riveting. Naruto froze. Since when the hell did he use words like riveting? He sat on the side of the bed and interlocked his fingers as he started to think seriously with his newfound intelligence. He had several things to think about after all that happened through last night's sequence of events. He sighed and took a deep breath. Firstly, there was the Kyuubi no Yuko itself. To say Naruto wasn't expecting that revelation would be a gross understatement. If he was perfectly honest with himself, it was utterly infuriating to know that, seemingly at random, He was chosen to house a creature of pure malevolence, and had no say in the matter. In that sense, he utterly despised the fourth Hokage for what he had done to him. He then grunted as a realization that deflated his pride came to him. What else could the Yellow Flash have done? By all accounts, a bijou was practically immortal to mere humans, who were nothing more than specks in the universe, if that. So, in that sense, he really had no other alternative. But then there was the million Ryu question. Why me? Naruto wondered aloud. Was he an orphan? Naruto mentally smacked himself. Of course he was now, at least. Did his parents abandon him? Give him to the fourth Hokage willingly? Or did the fourth pick him at random in the hospital while the village was attacked on a whim? That last thought made him wince a bit. What a screwed up way to save the village, if that was the case. He let loose a shaky huff as he rose from the bed to the bathroom. What's done is done. No use crying about it. It's not like crying approved my situation anyhow, eh? Naruto mused out loud, with silence answering back from his mirror's reflection. It was at that point he figured it'd be nice to know why the fourth chose him for this life of despair and loneliness. But in the grand scheme of things, especially after last night, it didn't matter. He absolutely refused to use that as a crutch and an excuse. He'd use his newfound mind to tear the sky asunder to reach his goals. Speaking of his mind, just who the hell put that seal on me? And for what reason? The fourth? No, he didn't have enough time to design two complex seals in that short of a time period, Naruto deduced as his eyes sharpened. He stood, bare-chested, and looked at the Shiki Fujin in the mirror, and from he read of seals, it was ludicrously complex. While it was true that the fourth Hokage was a seal master, this suppression seal, as the furball called it was just as intricate. Assuming he had written the seal as he performed the technique, in Naruto's mind, he had no reason to put it on him. Naruto's eyes then narrowed. Judging from the way it looked, this seal was put on me after the fox was sealed. Had it been done before, the suppression seal would have been overwritten and destroyed. That would mean it was after the fourth Hokage died. The question was who would. Naruto smirked to himself. Hey, I guess this new thing has got me thinking out loud. Guess that's a side effect, he ruminated. Finally, his thoughts came to his newfound friends, Sasuke and Sakura. They were different. Sasuke, he was an enigma. His mind traveled back to how he carried himself, all the way down to his mannerisms and his personality. Naruto figured he had to have a huge chip on his shoulder. It was the only way to explain it. His eyes held pain, loneliness, and most of all, rejection. Rejection from what? The blonde had no idea. The Uchiha was one of the four noble families, the other three being the Aburame, Akimichi, and Hyuga, so it couldn't have been a rejection from society. Despite their less than stellar past, the Uchiha were well respected by most of the civilians and a good number of the shinobi. So in that respect, he couldn't be rejected by society, at least, not like he was. Then there was the rosette-haired Sakura. Something just seemed off about her. Not in a way that made her presence off-putting, but he was almost sure that she was hiding something. And from what the blonde could tell, it was nothing to laugh at. If something made an 8-year-old girl come all the way out into the outskirts of Konoha, something terrible must have happened. Hundreds of possibilities ran through his mind, but he didn't have sufficient enough evidence to lean one way or the other. Ugh! None of it makes sense, he growled in frustration. Then, he stopped himself as his mind started to reason with logic yet again. Of course it didn't make sense. He had just met them yesterday. What, were they supposed to tell them their life story or something? Tell him all their secrets just like that? I guess not, he murmured as he shut off the light and plopped back into his bed. Considering what secret I hold, I wouldn't blame them. He didn't exactly want them to find out about the fox. That was on a need-to-know basis for now, at least, until he trusted them, fully, and utterly. As far as they were concerned, the Kyuubi was just a legend who was slain by the Yondaime Hokage. In hindsight, how the hell did we ever fall for such bullshit? Naruto pondered amid thin air before looking at his clock. It digitally read 8:55. Naruto's eyes bulged. Oh crap! I'm going to be late, he exclaimed while jumping up from his bed. By some act of the kami, he had managed to brush his teeth, put on his garish, orange outfit, wash his face, and be out the door within 2.5 minutes. He was in such a rush, he nearly forgot to lock the door. He fled down the streets of Konohagakure like a bat out of hell. Konoha Library 3rd District, 0859 hours. Outside of the Konoha Library, Sasuke and Sakura waited for the presumably late blonde to show up. Sasuke couldn't help but smirk. Barely a day in knowing the guy and he could already tell when the guy was going to run afoul with Father Time. So, how much you want to bet that he's probably rushing his ass off right now? Sasuke smarmily asked his pink-haired female friend. It's hard to say, she responded, looking at a nearby clock. Technically, he's not late. It's about a minute or so until 9. She was thankful that she was able to get out of the house this early. But then again, she didn't care if they did say no. She would have snuck out, regardless. Sasuke grunted. I suppose you're right. He isn't technically late. I'm sure he'll be here. As if on cue, a blur of orange ran past them skidding to a stop, and there was Naruto Uzumaki grinning from ear to ear. Sakura smirked. I told you he'd be here. Sasuke waved her off with a dismissive gesture. Yeah. Naruto, however, was a bit confused. Why wouldn't I be here? He questioned a bit dumbly. Oh, nothing. Sasuke here thought you'd show up late, she answered, smiling sweetly at her victory. Asshole Naruto simply rolled his eyes. Shall we? Sasuke asked, completely ignoring Naruto's comment, as all three of them turned to the entrance of the library. Naruto and Sakura nodded as the trio traveled up the steps. Naruto gulped a bit and looked at the both of them. They all nodded to each other, and he pushed the door open and they entered. Hokage's Tower, 0905 hours. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, watched the three younglings as they walked into the library. He couldn't place his finger on it, but something felt different about Naruto. He was serious. The boy could claim he hated mornings all he wanted, but this was around the time he routinely pulled off his pranks, which was why he was using his crystal ball to monitor him. What he didn't expect was to find the son of Fugaku, and a rosette-haired young lady. My Naruto, just what has happened to you? The aged Hokage mulled over, voicing his curiosity to an audience of none. Of course he wanted the boy to make friends. In fact, that was the sole reason he made that law so many years ago. It was in order for Naruto to have somewhat of a normal life despite his extraordinary circumstances. He looked over at the picture of Minato on the right wall hanging. You bastard, he clipped without a hint of venom in his tone. Why couldn't you have let me do the ceiling? Leaving your own son to the fate of a Jinchuriki? Truth be told, Hiruzen wasn't the one who told the village about Naruto's secret. It was some imbecile ANBU who had stretched the truth about the boy, and the rumors spread through the village faster than a forest fire. He clenched his fists. The ANBU thought he was clever, but he couldn't escape the deductive and inquisitive retired Hokage. He wasn't called the professor for nothing. He executed him personally. I guess what's done is done, he dejectedly commented as a knock came on his door. He smiled. He had been expecting this one. Come in, Irika. The aged senior took off his hat as the intended guest crossed the threshold. A tan, brunette man with a somewhat droopy ponytail tied back opened the door and closed it from behind. The true defining feature on the man's face was the noticeable scar that ran deep across the bridge of his nose. You wanted to see me, Hokage-sama? Per usual custom, Irika Yumino always asked tersely, professionally, and succinctly. Hiruzen motioned for the head instructor to sit down, which he did so. Yes, I'm here to discuss Naruto, Hiruzen mentioned without preamble. Irika was surprised. What could be so important that about Naruto that the Hokage wanted to personally see him? Hiruzen continued, before Irika could voice his question. I've been keeping an eye on him, for the past few weeks. As you know, he'll be eligible to enter the academy 6 months from now, coincidentally, along with the other heirs to the clans within the village. Irika frowned. Are you saying you're worried that Naruto will cause trouble for them? Because, Hiruzen held up a hand indicating silence. No. That's not at all what I'm implying. Irika, I think you may be in for a shock when Naruto enters the academy when the time comes. Now, the aptly named kindred dolphin was entirely confused. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? He was not afraid to admit ignorance, if he didn't understand. Hiruzen smiled, and motioned for him to come and look into his crystal ball. Irika raised an eyebrow, but complied with the old man's request. His eyes widened. Is that? He asked, unsure if his eyes were deceiving him. Yes, he declared, confirming his suspicions, that would be none other than Sasuke Uchiha, second son of the Konoha Kimabutai, Leaf Military Police Force, Captain, Fugaku. Wow was all Irika could say. Naruto befriended an Uchiha? He'd honestly expected if Naruto were to befriend someone, it'd be a Nara or an Akimichi, but an Uchiha? The son of the captain of the police forces, no less? Not in a million years. After getting over his initial shock, he finally noticed a pink-haired girl. Who's the girl? If my memory serves me correctly, she is a Haruno, a civilian family. But not for long, considering the two she's mingling with. What does this all mean? Hiruzen smiled. He'd asked the million-ryu question. Someone was bound to get paid. It means, Irika, that the academy is about to become a hell of a lot more interesting. Something tells me these three will go on to become legends. The younger ninja blinked at the man. Legends? How do you figure that? Surely he must have had some logical reason to make a proclaimed statement like that. Irika, do you not remember who I trained and who trained me? Hiruzen asked semi-rhetorically. Who didn't know? Hiruzen Sarutobi, the shinobi no kami, who trained the legendary 3 ninja, and fought in all 3 great shinobi world wars. He was trained by Hashirama Senju, the Shodai Hokage, and Tobirama Senju, the Nidaime Hokage. He was a shinobi whose name was known to virtually every shinobi in existence. If anyone was qualified to say who had potential to be legends, it was him. Irika chose not to respond. Call it a hunch, gut feeling, prophetic vision, I don't care. These 3, they have amazing potential, he began before his gaze hardened on Irika, who was beginning to sweat at the stare. I warn you now, Irika, I will not allow your assistants to impede their, mostly Naruto's, progress. Keep them in line to show fairness despite how they no doubt feel about Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki. He definitely was not sugarcoating there. The even-mannered Chunin winced, but nodded. I understand, sir. I will do my best. Hiruzen bobbed his head once. Good. Keep them on a good leash, otherwise I may have to put them down. The tone in his voice was ice cold and dead serious, and Iruka couldn't help but dumbly nod yet again. Kind the old man was, but when needed, he could scare the ever-living shit out of anyone if he wanted to. Iruka felt apprehensive to speak at the moment. And just as his demeanor became cold, it was gone in an instant and replaced with the same warm smile that radiated the will of fire. He smiled again at his Hokage's reassurance. Hiruzen stood up and looked outside the window where nearly all of Konoha was in view. He took a puff of his pipe. Iruka, I never got a chance to say this, but thank you, he cordially stated. Hokage-sama? Iruka asked, confused, but the wizened fire shadow continued on, uninterrupted. For showing Naruto kindness, when few would even give him the time of day, the professor explained. Iruka nodded in understanding as Hiruzen continued. I love this village with all of my heart, and would gladly give my life if it meant we saw another sunrise. However, at times I grow impatient with their less than stellar response to Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki. You feel they are ungrateful? Iruka asked quizzically. Hiruzen smiled, even though Iruka couldn't see it with his back turned. The Chunin was far more insightful than most gave him credit for. Then again, growing close to Naruto over the years, he'd sort of had to figure out people since it had been tough for the instructor to gain the boy's trust what little he had, anyhow. You're insightful as ever, Iruka, the Hokage praised, causing said person to blush in embarrassment. The Yondaime gave his life for this village, asked Naruto to be treated as a hero, and yet they simply don't acknowledge his existence. Hiruzen's voice was neutral, but even Iruka could detect the subtle undercurrent of desolation that the Hokage tried to hide. Well, at the very least, they don't treat him like some other villages treat their Jinchuriki, Iruka countered, not sure if he was trying to reassure himself or the Hokage. Hiruzen frowned. Ah, yes. Indeed. As much as I feel sorry for Naruto, he's still considered human for the most part. Hell, even Danzo thought it beneath him to try to turn him into a weapon. Iruka stood up suddenly. Whoa, Hokage-sama, please forgive me if I'm rude, but are you sure to trust me with such sensitive information? While Iruka knew he could keep a secret, he was only a Chunin for heaven's sake. Most shinobi would kill for the juicy details or the S-class village secrets. But he didn't want to carry the burden of having awareness of those clandestine bits of intelligence. Plausible deniability went a long way in the shinobi world. Hiruzen didn't even bat an eyelash. Yes, I am. I feel like I can trust you and my gut has never steered me wrong. The kindred dolphin still wasn't convinced, but he wasn't about to argue otherwise. He simply sighed. We shall continue this talk later. For now, monitor the boy and his new group of friends. From afar, of course. I don't want Naruto to know I'm keeping an eye on him. Iruka couldn't help but smirk. Is that an order or a request? Consider it both, the professor said with a smirk of his own. You're dismissed. With a nod, Iruka sat up and took his leave, feeling slightly better after talking with his Hokage. When Iruka left, Hiruzen immediately turned to his right, as a voice came from the shadows. You know it's not polite to talk about others behind their backs. The voice was deep, showed signs of age, yet it still commanded an aura of respect and fear to match even the Sandaime himself. Hiruzen scoffed at the eavesdropper, wooden cane and all. Coming from you, Danzo? How hypocritical of you, Hiruzen spitefully chided. The newly named Danzo stepped out from the shadows. Judging from his appearance, he was a man that had seen enough battle no man should see in several lifetimes. He was old and sickly, and leaned on a cane for support. His right eye was covered in bandages as were a part of his head. But in any case, I'm glad you're here. We have much to discuss. Yes, Hiruzen, we do. Konoha Library, 0949 hours. Good call, Naruto. Honestly, I wasn't expecting you to suggest we read up on our history first, Sakura praised. Sasuke pursed his lips as a silent acknowledgement. Even he was impressed. At first, he was against it, but Naruto's reasoning certainly made a hell of a lot of sense. The trio was currently sitting in a corner on cushions, triangularly, with several scrolls and traditional books near them. They chose a place as far away from where people normally went so they could talk in peace and private. Naruto grinned sheepishly. Oh, come on, Sakura, you know I can't take all the credit. You're the one who found the book first. Otherwise, I'd have gone straight to the jutsu on impulse. The rosette-haired girl simply shook her head. You know, Naruto, you're humble almost to the point of being annoying. Naruto stared at both of them seriously. Pride is before the fall. We should know our limits so we can surpass them. That's what Hokage Jiji told me when I asked him some of the things I needed to do to become a great shinobi. Naruto's right, the dark-eyed Uchiha spoke up. I've read some of my clan history, and as much as it hurts my pride, my clan's #1 weakness is our arrogance. He looked down as if ashamed. I've seen how prideful and arrogant my father has been, thinking himself superior to everyone because he's simply an Uchiha. I disagree. Naruto and Sakura said nothing, but intently listened to the Uchiha as he let his personal feelings out. He looked back at the fellow male and female of their group. So let's start with the basics so we'll have a head start when we enter the academy, and to expand our knowledge of how everything works. Naruto and Sakura smirked. Let's do this. Sakura delicately shouted, unrolling a scroll and laying it down in the middle so they all could see. Okay, basic understanding of how our world works, Naruto said aloud. 5 great shinobi villages: Konohagakure, that's us, obviously, Kumogakure, Kirigakure, Sunagakure, and Iwagakure. Sakura thought for a moment. What else do they say about them? I wonder if there are any weaknesses we can discover. Weaknesses? Why? Naruto asked. Think about it, if we know what their general weaknesses are, we can better be prepared if, heaven forbid, we ever go to war, Sakura explained in a scholarly fashion. Or for the Chunin exams, Sasuke added, looking at the scroll. Huh! They both said in response. Sasuke simply unrolled a part of the scroll that caught his eye so he could detail further. Look at this. As a tradition rather than an actual international law, the Chunin exams are held twice every year in a different shinobi village to show off each village's promising genin. I see, Naruto uttered while beginning to understand. He blinked once for good measure. This is a replacement for war. Quite ingenious, when you think about it. Sasuke nodded. If the villages can't show deterrence by war, why not do the next best thing? Show off your most talented genin in front of all the villages, to see what kind of potential they have. Naruto frowned. There's a problem with that. Logic started to circulate through his mind again. Not all 5 villages are present at any one Chunin exam. Well, Naruto-kun, that's why there's rotation, see here? Sakura interjected as she pointed to a diagram that seemed to show how the host village was chosen. According to it, it alternated with Konohagakure at the top to Kumo, then Suna, then Kiri, and finally Iwa. Now then, think about it, what about this order suggests that all 5 won't attend at the same time? Sakura asked while anticipating no other questions. Naruto stood there thinking about the implications of all this. Not at Sakura's question, no. But they were each challenging each other. Testing each other's wits. Most importantly of all, learning from each other, in ways no instructor could ever teach them. Geographical locations, Sasuke said aloud as he sat back in disbelief. It was so simple, yet so hidden at the same time. Sakura smirked. He had hit the nail on the head. Naruto, give me a map, Sasuke politely, but sternly, requested. Naruto shrugged and he showed him a scroll with a map of the elemental nations. The minute it opened, everything clicked in Naruto's mind. Wow, of course! Depending on which village was hosting the exams, certain villages couldn't make the journey simply because it was too long, along with crossing other smaller villages' territory, which was a goddamned mess politically. This year the exams were to be held in Kumo, which prevented Suna and Iwa from participating, simply due to it not being worth the journey and mess involved. You guys catch on quick, Sakura said as if proud of herself for her achievement. Naruto smirked. Didn't think we'd be able to keep up with you mentally, did you? Sasuke looked at her funnily. Is that so? Oh, hush, you two. You know I was just teaching you guys as well as you guys are teaching me. Hey, I bet your mom must be proud to have such a smart daughter, Sasuke commented without thinking, laughing a bit, and Sakura's mood immediately deflated. Yes, so proud, she said solemnly. Naruto's eyes narrowed. As I suspected, something is wrong. Is that how she hides it? When she can show of her intelligence? When he mentioned her mom. Sakura, you okay? Sasuke asked, seeing her dejected look. She shook her head. Don't worry about me, Sasuke. I'm fine, she cracked. Sasuke frowned, but said nothing more. Naruto sighed, deciding now was a great time to change the subject. He reached for another piece of parchment. History of Konoha? Sasuke read the kanji. Naruto shrugged his shoulders in response. Better now than later, eh? In response, they both groaned. Naruto simply grinned in response. Oh boy, was this going to be fun. Unknown location. Are you sure of this information, Zetsu? A tall, spiky-haired figure in a dark cave inquired in a monotone voice. Yes, I'm positive, Leader-sama, Zetsu replied. Zetsu was truly a strange shinobi. He was more plant than anything. Half of his body was black, and the other half, white. He seemed to have a dual personality, with the ebony side of him being more malevolent. Well then, things are about to become interesting once the world learns of this, the leader replied, his face still masked by the darkness. The only thing that was visible in his silhouette was his hypnotic vortex-shaped eyes. Leader-sama, such sensitive information could, a quick glare shut Zetsu up. Don't question me ever again, Zetsu, do I make myself clear? Yes, sir, he responded meekly. Good now, get out of my sight, he commanded dismissively with a flick of his hand. Zetsu nodded and vanished from his leader's sight. The leader felt a presence behind him. Shall we accept the deal? The voice was soft and feminine. Of course, Konan. It's not every day Akatsuki is hired by those within a village to assassinate a Kage for a Jinchuriki. So, then Konan began. Yes, in exchange for the 8 tails we shall eliminate the Reikage permanently. Kumogakure, 1,100 hours. The village hidden among the clouds stood in the apex of the peninsula northeast of Fire Country, and stood as the heart of power within Lightning Country. Most people assumed that every shinobi village in the Yen, elemental nations, was a military dictatorship that was led by its Kage. This was entirely true. However, the hidden cloud was a bit different. While it was true that the village was, at its core, a dictatorship, that didn't mean that the Reikage had absolute power. The village was absolutely enormous, dwarfing the other 4 great villages by a factor of 3 combined. As such, to say it would be difficult for the Raikage to micromanage everything in the village alone would be a vast understatement. As such, a system was introduced that divided Kumo into 13 districts. These districts would then run off a system of elections, where the people who lived in said district would choose an elected official who would represent them and their issues on the Kumo Council, which advised the Raikage himself. The council could only override decisions made by the Raikage with nothing short of a unanimous vote. Military matters, on the other hand, were wisely left solely to the Raikage. Everything else was pretty much fair game. The Raikage let most of the officials micromanage their own districts, while he basically got a broad overview of major issues. Naturally, with any attempt at some form of democracy, this gave rise to political parties, who had different agendas from each other. Whichever party had the most seats, had the most influence on public and foreign policy. This usually wasn't a problem simply because the Raikage's party usually had the most seats on the council. In effect, this system made Kumogakure a literal example of a dictatorship and a republic occurring in a single state at the exact same time. Raikage Tower, 1105 hours, 1st District. A large, dark-skinned male sat in the comfortable chair that he was accustomed to every day. He wore the traditional kage robes with his village's trademark yellow and white colors. He was extremely muscular to where his biceps looked like the size of tree trunks. Killer A, the Yandame Raikage, sighed as he sat back in deep thought, drinking a small bottle of sake. PFT, he scorned. 5 years into this kage business, and I'm already starting to hate this job. 5 years ago, his father, the Sandame Raikage, had passed away, due to unknown reasons in his sleep. He was the one who had ordered the capturing of the Hyuga heiress during the negotiations of a peace treaty with Konoha. It ended in spectacular failure, and Kumo was the laughingstock of the shinobi world currently. To make matters worse, they had to deal with an increasingly divided council, in which a sense of national pride was sweeping across the village. If he didn't do anything soon, Kumo could be on the brink of collapse and civil war. Damn it all! Accursed as he slammed his fists on the desk, causing a sizable dent. Darui! He called out. A young, dark-skinned male appeared in front of the Raikage, immediately on one knee in front of his commanding leader. He wore a standard Cloud Jounin uniform, had white hair, and had a lazy look in his eye almost akin to a certain Cyclopean copy ninja. Yes, Raikage-sama? He responded to his call, aside, as he leaned back in his chair. Darui, sit down. Darui raised an eyebrow not at the request, but the tone the Raikage used. He was usually upbeat, and admittedly, a bit eccentric, but now he sounded defeated as if he had the entire world on his shoulders and he couldn't bear it. However, he kept the thoughts of his out-of-the-ordinary shift in mood to himself as he sat down on the left chair of the 2 provided in front of his desk. He made himself comfortable before waiting for A to speak again. Darui, you're one of my most trusted shinobi, and as such, I feel that I should share this with you, A began, somewhat getting to the point. Should I? Darui began, before A shook his head, already knowing where he was headed with that inquiry. No. It isn't classified information, more of me. He searched for the right word. Darui frowned. It was becoming increasingly clear that A was uncomfortable with saying whatever he'd wanted to tell him. The white-haired Jounin honestly didn't know how to reassure him, seeing as how his mood at the moment was entirely different from he was used to dealing with. A few moments passed and A had finally gathered his thoughts and swallowed some of his pride, clearing his throat in the process. Subconsciously, Darui sat a bit straighter. This is more of me telling you my feelings and why I haven't been in the best of moods lately, the burly Thunder Shadow finally explained. If Darui was surprised, he hid it extremely well with his lazy stoicism. Continued, to be honest, I'm worried about the village and where it's headed in the future. We failed to capture the Byakugan, and we ended up looking like fools. Tensions were high already, and we barely avoided outright war had it not been for Konoha being ill-equipped to face another conflict. Now, my party is in danger of losing seats on the council to those bastard ultranationalists. He gritted his teeth in anger at the mention of the last group. Darui grimaced. He knew very well that the ultranationalists were very dangerous. The People's Utopian National Liberation Party, or ultranationalists, was a revolutionary political party who were relatively minor considering their extreme views. It wasn't a secret that most, if not all, members of it hated A with an absolute passion. A and his father, the Third Raikage, had scaled back their forces in favor of economic prosperity. While it was true that the Cloud did enter wars during their reigns, they had lost all of them, the most recent one being A's humiliating defeat at the hands of Namikaze Minato, who was, by many, considered the most gifted shinobi to ever live. Combined with that loss, and the Hyuga incident, many of their viewpoints started to slowly shift public opinion toward them. Even though they were a minority, for now, A simply couldn't have them rounded up and executed. While he had a good hunch of what their hidden agendas were, considering he had some spies in their ranks, if he were to simply kill them off, he had no idea if the public wouldn't cry foul or not. Protecting the viewpoints of the minority had long been a bullet point of their pseudo-democracy. If he executed them because they didn't agree with him, in their eyes, what would stop him from executing them if they happened to disagree with him on a particular issue? A bloody civil war was almost guaranteed, I understand your plight, sir, Darui began, but do you have so little faith in our people that they will vote the ultranationalists in power, knowing how they stand? You're not seeing the big picture, Darui, the hefty shinobi chastised, which made said Jounin flinch. People will do anything when they're desperate. Our economy isn't in shambles, but it isn't close to where it used to be. Clients are declining, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. I have a shitstorm just waiting to happen, not to mention, I still have Yujito and B to deal with, Darui sighed. You don't think they'll resort to open warfare, do you? I contemplated that possibility for a second. No, I don't think so. The lot of them are genocidal psychopaths. Darui had to do a double take at the Raikage's description of them. The animosity between the parties in the village was true, genuine, unadulterated hatred. He resisted the urge to shake his head. However, I don't think they're suicidal. I don't think they're stupid enough to engage in open warfare inside the village. With B and I to deal with, he stated matter-of-factly. The heir to the Black Lightning nodded. His Kage's logic made perfect sense, along with other things that he didn't indicate. Not only would they lose a lot of manpower, even if they did win, they'd also have to rebuild the village while worry about the possibility of foreign powers wiping them out in their time of weakness. It was a coup that had too many possibilities of failures at too many points in time to pull off effectively. So they had to go the legal way, which was arguably even smarter, considering many of the circumstances and hardships a good proportion of the civilians, and even some shinobi had to deal with. A then smirked. Not to mention we have Aisu on our side as well, he offhandedly noted. Darui returned the Raikage's grin. Indeed. The gods know the minute those bastards even dared to try anything akin to brute force, he'll slaughter them all like lambs. I chuckled. I sometimes wonder who hates them more, me or him. He pondered aloud. He then waved off the thought. No matter. Bottom line was they aren't taking this village by force. So, we'll just have to beat them politically. I had thought they would try and take it through political muscle. He had thought that they weren't suicidal enough to try and take it by force. Never did it cross his mind that a third option existed, and a factor he couldn't have anticipated in a million years. Both Ways and Akatsuki. Konoha Library 1130 hours. Alright, quiz time, Sakura called out as both Sasuke and Naruto nodded. They had been in the library for the past 2.5 hours, in which time flew by so quickly the three barely noticed it. They agreed to eat lunch afterwards. Of course, Naruto picked Ichiraku's ramen, to which the raven and rosette-haired 8-year-olds simply shrugged at the choice. It sure as hell didn't matter to them where they ate so long as it was A, not too expensive, and B, tasted good. Alright, I'll start with you, Naruto-kun. I'll start easy and work my way up in difficulty, okay? Sakura asked him, looking directly at him with the scroll opened across her lap. Fine by me, Naruto replied, relaxing in his cushion. What are the 5 elemental natures? She started off. Naruto resisted the urge to roll his eyes at such ridiculously easy question. Fire, water, earth, wind, and lightning. Sakura nodded her head, indicating he was correct. Sasuke-kun, what are the names of the noble clans that reside in our village? Uchiha, Hyuga, Aburame, and Akimichi. Geez, Sakura, you'd think I'd get that wrong? He countered, laughing all the way. Naruto smirked, while Sakura giggled. Hey, I did say I was going easy at first, she defended before turning back to Naruto. Okay, Naruto-kun, you're next. Name the founding members of our village. Naruto smirked before she added yes, that includes the minor ones too, she added, wiping the smirk off his face. She grinned, triumphant. Damn, Sakura, you're evil, Sasuke said, laughing. She simply smiled. Shut it, Sasuke. Naruto complained before he contemplated. Well, we know there's the first Hokage, obviously, his brother, who became the second Hokage, Kazanrai Akimichi, Hirashi Hyuga, Nazumaru Aburame, and Madara Uchiha? He was unsure about the last name, so it came out more quizzical than anything. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at Madara's mentioning, but it was gone as quickly as the expression adorned his face. Neither of his two friends noticed it, of which he was thankful for. Sakura looked stunned. Why, you got me there. I thought you would have forgotten, she admitted. It was one of the first things they studied when Naruto suggested for them to read Konoha, a history. Naruto smiled. Well, Sakura, we're all full of surprises, aren't we? His double meaning behind that didn't go unnoticed by Sasuke or Sakura, but neither of them voiced it. Trust me, Naruto-kun. I have a closet full of them, she bitterly thought, but her inner dwellings didn't betray her facial expression, which she kept and outwardly smiled, although it was a bit forced after he unintentionally brought the incident with Tetsuya back to the forefront of her mind. She banished those from her head. He'd get what was coming to him soon enough, but right now, she needed to focus on getting prepared for her life as a ninja. All right, Sasuke, in descending order, rank the geographical sizes of the 5 great hidden villages. Got it, he plainly intoned, nodding. From greatest to least, I'd say Kumogakure, Kanahigakure, Iwagakure, Sunagakure, and Kirigakure. Sakura smiled. Close, but it's Kumo, Iwa, Konoha, Suna, and then Kiri. Ha! Got you there, Sasuke, Naruto joked, not helping the chance to gloat. Sasuke rolled his eyes. Yeah, and I bet you probably would have had the same order as me. He had to come back with something even if it was a bit lame. Okay, totally lame, but you got the idea. Naruto, perhaps, foolishly said nothing. Sasuke blinked before busting out laughing. Holy shit, seriously? He rhetorically asked, rolling over and holding his sides. I was just joking, and you confirmed it. He fell over, incapacitated from chortling. Sakura couldn't help but to join in with Sasuke's amusement, and started laughing a bit loudly herself, albeit a bit muffled due to her covering her mouth. Yeah, laugh it up, you two, the blonde grumbled. Hey! You three! This is a library, not a circus! One of the assistant librarians told them as she walked past them. The Uchiho's scion and his pink-haired friend's laughter were reduced to mere chuckles as they calmed down. Oh man, that was good, Sakura said, wiping a small tear from her eye. This felt so good to be in the company of people she had come to genuinely enjoy being around. Admittedly, at first, she only agreed to go with them to the library last night was because she needed something to take her mind off what happened. Now she truly enjoyed being around them. They didn't call her names or mention the size of her forehead. You know, it's almost noon, and I'm in need of nourishment, Naruto said, intoning a scholar using large vocabulary exclusively. I'm in need of nourishment? Who the hell says that? Sasuke asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto's eye twitched. Well, jackass, if you were listening to my tone, you'd know that I was making fun of certain types of people, so nyeh. He snipped, sticking out his tongue. Sakura got between them. Okay, you two. Enough fighting, she said, knowing full well both of them weren't insulted by what the other said in the least. He started it. They both half-shouted at the same time, causing both to mock glare at each other. Sakura sighed and stood up, grabbing them both by the ears, taking authority for once in her life as she dragged them away a bit. Ow! Sakura-chan, that hurts, Naruto complained, while Sasuke cringed at the pain he received from his resident auditory organ being pulled upon. Sakura gave them both a smile, but it was more shut the hell up now or you're in for a world of hurt type of smiles. If both boys were completely honest with themselves, Sakura scared the piss out of them at that moment. Okay, boys, are you two going to behave? They both nodded frantically. Do I have to do this every time you boys fight? Two heads violently shook in the negative. Do you understand the consequences if I see you two doing this in public? Frantic nods even faster, considering they were still in pain. She sincerely smiled and let them go, hugging their heads under both her arms. Great. Now let's go to lunch, she sweetly chirped. The blue-eyed troublemaker looked at the onyx-eyed brunette, who was just as bewildered as he was. How the hell could she be so scary and sweet at the same time? And when they actually became a ninja, she'd be even stronger than now. A sense of dread came over them as they both came to same conclusion. Let's try and not piss off the pink flower. As the trio was walking out the library, a thought occurred to the Uchiha genius. Shouldn't we clean up the mess? He inquired. They both stopped and looked at the pile and then back to Sasuke and then back to the pile. All three smirked. Not all three of them said simultaneously, laughing as they walked out of the library together and headed for the Ichiraku ramen bar. Route base, location unknown, time unknown. Danzo casually strolled through the base that had served to be his operating base for the past 2.5 decades. Although it probably needed some infrastructure improvements, what he had would do for now. It served its purposes, and to the route leader, that suited him well enough. He came to a large room, in which a throne sat in the middle. Were this a decade ago, he wouldn't have need for such a useless piece of furniture. But alas, like his old rival, he was not immune to the effects of aging, trying as he might to slow down the process. Danzo Shimura made his way up several steps before turning around and comfortably sitting himself on the throne, allowing his eye to adjust to the dim lighting. He cursed having to sit instead of standing like he usually had done so in the past. Fu! Toryun! He called out, as a couplet of figures appeared before him. Fu had auburn hair and amber-colored eyes, and had an attire consisting of standard A and B uniforms, albeit a bit different from Hiruzen's army for distinguishing purposes. His partner, Toryun, was an aburame, and he adorned a mask to hide away the upper part of his face, leaving his mouth and nose exposed. These were Danzo's most trusted and, possibly, most powerful members of his army. Yes, Danzo-sama. They replied in unison, their tone of voice indicating that they were ready to complete any and all orders assigned to them by the aged warhawk. Report in, he simply commanded. Fu and Toryun both looked each other a bit nervously before they turned back to him. So we've found some interesting information on the foreign side. The crippled veteran raised a critical eyebrow. Go on, Fu sighed. Before I tell you this, Danzo-sama, understand the fact that we even were able to come across this information was a stroke of pure and unadulterated luck. A small glare told the two to get to the point, an action that didn't go unnoticed by either of the two high-ranking operatives. It was Toryun who spoke this time. Sir, if this source is indeed correct, we have reason to believe that the ultranationalists may be planning a coup. Danzo's eye went as wide as saucers as he stood up suddenly, a bit out of character. He normally took reports with a calm, emotionless stature. Preposterous! He grated out, a bit in denial. While Danzo knew his views were a bit extreme, even he was disgusted by some of the viewpoints those psychopaths had. You fool! Do you not realize how virtually impossible a rebellion for them would be? To Danzo, he'd have a better shot of killing Hiruzen and taking the village for himself than the ultranationalists did. Fu and Torian frowned as their master continued on in his rant. Not to mention they have the Raikage, their two Jinchuriki, and most of all him, he said with a bit of a shudder. Fu knew exactly who he was referring to. Isu Hayasaka, current commander of the Cloud Special Forces Unit, Bolt, Black Operations and Lightning Tactics. His bitter hate of the ultranationalists was known only to the people at the top, considering he kept most of his viewpoints to himself, but any genius could see the seething hatred underneath his stoicism. Sir, we know it sounds a bit far-fetched, but that's not even the part that's got us a bit disturbed. Considering that they were supposed to not have any emotions, such a simple statement spoke volumes about the situation they were in. And what, pray tell, is that? Danzo asked flatly, taking a drink from a cup of tea that was always near him while sitting back down in his throne. We don't have 100% confirmation, but there's a 50% chance they're working with Akatsuki, Torian gravely intoned, dropping the utter bombshell. Danzo dropped his cup, shattering its contents all over the ceramic floor. For the first time in years, Danzo Shimura sat in absolute stunned silence. Fu and Torian were expressionless. He gripped the armrest of his throne and gritted his teeth. I see, he managed to force out after a brief moment of silence. He looked at his operative seriously. This changes everything. Fu looked at him curiously. Everything, sir? He inquired. I want you two to use any means necessary to confirm 100% of everything you've shared today. For now, I want all our plans within Konoha to be scaled back by 70% and refocus our efforts on gaining reconnaissance on Kumo. Torian's eyes widened, alarmed at the implication. Sir, are you sure that's? Danzo glared at him, shutting him up. Don't you both get it? If Akatsuki is indeed playing a role in this, then the chances of this coup d'état being successful goes up dramatically. We can't allow that to happen. I will not allow that to happen. He stood up and walked towards them. If the ultranationalists gain control of Kumo, to put it simply, all hell will break loose, as they will take full advantage of the situation they're in, which ultimately affects Konoha. Now he gave them a direct look. And how doesn't it knock down a tree that stands in our way? We take out the roots, sir. Fu and Torian responded simultaneously. Fu, Torian, I'm counting on you both to not let this information leak out, he told them sternly. While he trusted his seal, but if the two were caught by the ultranationalists, even he was wary considering their brutal methods. Sir, we won't let you down, Fu promised, to which Danzo nodded. Don't you both have a mission? He asked dismissively, until the both of them nodded and vanished from sight, leaving the crippled elder to his own devices. He let out a huff. The situation with Kumo now proved serious and problematic, with what little intel he had received. He debated on whether or not to tell Hiruzen, but decided against it. Hiruzen, like himself, knew of the ultranationalists back in the days of the Second Great Shinobi World War. As such, he would likely take action similar to what he planned to do with his root Anbu. However, that would complicate things too much. He barely trusted Torian and Fu with the information they had. The less people that knew, the greater chances of the ultranationalists not catching on that there were foreign powers aware of their plans. Yes, for now, he would be content with this bit of intelligence, until he knew for certain how to deal with it. As far as he was concerned, he would not let them take power if it was the last thing he did, if not for Konoha's sake, but the entire yin. Maybe this will help me get what I truly want, he thought to himself with the smallest hint of a smile. Unfortunately for Danzo, he truly had no idea of the approaching tide that threatened to tear asunder the delicate balance. Konoha streets, downtown area, 1230 hours. Naruto and his friends were currently set on their path towards the Ichiraka Ramen Bar, a place where the loudmouthed blonde had chosen earlier. People were curiously looking at the trio, mainly because they had never seen Naruto with anyone in his age group that could even remotely be considered an acquaintance, let alone friends. Naruto was enjoying idle conversation with Sasuke and Sakura that he genuinely didn't even notice the villagers' stares and glares. The fox, however, was not blind, as even being trapped he could still see plain as day that the villagers weren't exactly happy about his jailer conversing with the Uchiha. But seeing as how it didn't really affect them too much, at best, they just shaken their heads and moved on. These villagers are such stupid and ignorant creatures. Are they truly that blind to what's in front of them? He thought with a slight growl. Granted, he was literally there when Minato sealed him inside Naruto, but a blind man could see the two shared a genetic link, father or otherwise. It wasn't that the Kyuubi particularly cared for Naruto's well-being, the only thing that mattered to him was his survival. It was just that the sheer ignorance of these pitiful apes was a disgusting sight to behold. With all that being said, if he were perfectly honest with himself, he could see himself genuinely coming to respect his jailer in due time, of course. He didn't like his situation. In fact, he flat out hated it, but like the logic Naruto used this morning applied to him, too. He was stuck, and crying out about it wasn't going to make the situation get any better. The fox could say many things about Naruto Uzumaki, but to say he didn't know how to choose good friends would be a bold-faced lie that even a mythical creature of his status couldn't deny. Sakura and the raven-haired Uchiha scion had actually impressed the mightiest of the Bijou. Funny, here I was hating the Uchiha brat due to his connection to that bastard clan, he growled with venom. But as he intently listened to his interactions with Naruto, he found himself genuinely taking a slight liking to the boy, a fact that disgusted him, but it didn't mean the feeling would go away. The boy was nothing like his arrogant and boastful clan, a fact that probably disturbed him as well as intrigued him. Sakura was extremely intelligent, probably borderline genius if he had to guess. The Vulpine sensed deep trouble within her spirit, something he had a knack for. Exactly what it was, his guess was as good as Naruto's. No matter, they'd find out sooner or later. In short, the Kyuubi thought that the trio had a vast amount of potential, and with the right amount of training, they'd go on to become legends. Speaking of training, although their methods were sound, knowledge of the mind only went so far. They had to work their asses off through blood, sweat, and bitter tears. The fox snickered at the thought, briefly amused at the image in his head. Looking outside toward the real world, he saw that Naruto was silent, but grinning as Sakura made conversation with Sasuke. Naruto, can you hear me? He asked semi-rhetorically, already knowing he could, but it was a standard inquiry for new forms of communication. Naruto's eyes widened in the street as he nearly tripped over himself at the sudden, dark voice in his head. Kyuubi? He whispered, unsure if he was just imagining things. Don't speak out loud, you moron! He warned with a little insult to boot. And act normal, too. Just keep walking. Alright, geez, did you have to insult me like that? Yes, came the fox's flat reply. Naruto simply rolled his eyes. Just what the hell is going on? How can you speak to me like this? Why are you contacting me at a time like? Shut up, he commanded, clearly irritated at the barrage of questions. Naruto gritted his teeth, but said nothing. He was thankful Sasuke and Sakura weren't paying him much attention, if at all. The fox sighed. Okay, that was a bit too far. Sorry, Naruto had to do a triple take. Did the fox, the greatest of the 9 Bijou, apologize to him? Unfortunately, for Naruto, he continued on before he could point out this probably once-in-a-blue-moon moment. It's simple, really. What use am I to you, if you can only speak with me during a routine trip through your mind when your body is unconscious? We've developed a mental link. I can communicate to you while you're conscious and doing menial tasks and whatnot. As for why I'm contacting you, well, it's about your new friends. There was a pause. Just saying that word sent shivers down the fox's spine. It was such an alien concept to him. He sighed in defeat. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Sasuke and Sakura? What about M? Well, your training. I think it's obvious at this point you 3 will probably train together from now on, as well when you're in the academy. Kyuubi had made it a point to pay attention to every detail of the scrolls that they had read and, as such, he had an intimate knowledge of the elemental nation's inner workings, whereas before he couldn't have cared less about the system of social constructs the humans had created for themselves. Truly ironic that he was gaining far more knowledge in prison than he was a free fox. Go figure. Naruto nodded. I see, he responded neutrally. We likely are. Do you have some easier methods and approaches so we can get stronger? I don't have any ideas at this particular moment, no. However, I do have a suggestion that I strongly recommend you take heed of as soon as possible. You 3 need to start physical training, the moment time permits you to do so. I will not have a vessel that's intelligent, but can't fight his way out of a paper bag. Naruto grimaced, but nodded, anyhow. He understood perfectly from the fox's point of view. If he were in his paws, he'd tell his jailer the same thing. Funny how they thought more alike than either of them wished to admit. I'll keep that in mind, I'll contact you later on tonight. I can't have myself spacing out talking to you and such. They'll get suspicious. I don't know about you, but them finding out is the absolute last thing I want. The Kyuubi audibly snorted. You sound as if you're ashamed of me, he said a bit mockingly, which he immediately regretted. Considering what I've gone through, I have every fucking right to be, came Naruto's bitter reply. The fox flinched a bit, but said nothing. A pregnant silence had passed by, and Naruto, with a bit of mental force, cut off the connection. Sasuke, Sakura-chan. He called out as he caught up to them, noticing that he had lagged behind a bit in his brief chat with his Vulpine tenant. They both turned around and smiled. Hey Naruto-kun, did you space out and lag behind, or something? He grinned sheepishly and rubbed the back of his head. Well, I guess you could say that. Technically, he wasn't lying, so it was fine by him. A few moments later, they had finally arrived at Naruto's favorite restaurant. Naruto took a quick sniff, and the aroma of smells he'd come to enjoy over the past few years assaulted his nose. He started drooling already. Tucci, the main chef, had noticed the blonde immediately and greeted him with a smile. Naruto. It's good to see you. The old man was busy fixing some ramen for another customer who frowned at Naruto's appearance, but chose to keep it to himself. Tucci-ji-san. It's good to see you as well. Naruto greeted back with a genuine smile. Tucci and his daughter Im were one of the few people to treat him with some respect and actually acknowledge that he even existed. He would be eternally grateful for them easing the despair that could have driven him insane as a child. He nodded, as the trio took a seat at the bar. So, I see you have some friends. Mind introducing yourselves? Sakura. Sakura Haruno, sir, the green-eyed girl introduced, blushing at being put on the spot so suddenly. Sasuke Uchiha, Sasuke said coolly. Tucci raised an eyebrow. An Uchiha? He sure as hell didn't act like one. Guess they weren't all bad, the chef decided at the moment. Hey Tucci-ji, where's Ayame-chan? He asked curiously. Usually, by now, the brunette would have greeted him. She's currently at home for her day off. I'll tell her you asked about her, he assured. That'd be much appreciated, Naruto thanked with a nod. Alright, you three, enough small talk. What'll it be? The chef asked, going into full business mode. I'll take 2 bowls of miso ramen. You know my usual, Naruto told him, to which he raised an eyebrow. Only 2 bowls? He questioned before laughing a bit. You sound as if he usually orders more, Sasuke noted, raising an amused eyebrow. Actually, yeah? Usually he eats about 6, Tucci tacked on, laughing. The jaws of the Uchiha and the Haruno were now on the floor. See 6 bowls? Sakura stammered out, looking over at a nearby customer's bowl, which was huge by normal standards. By the gods, Naruto, how the heck do you eat so much? Hey! A guy's gotta eat, you know, he defended, crossing his arms. Especially when it's the cheapest food you can get by on without people hating my guts, he added with a mental sigh. Tucci shook his head and spoke again. What about you two? 1 bowl of shrimp ramen, came Sakura's reply. Just 1 bowl of miso ramen, came Sasuke's. Tucci nodded. Coming right up. He chirped prior to moving to the back to cook said meals, leaving the trio alone, once again. Naruto smiled. That Tucci-ji, he snickered, shaking his head. He's a really nice man, you guys. He makes some of the best ramen ever. The blonde proclaimed proudly. I'll be the judge of that when the bowl is in front of me, Sasuke chided, not out of serious doubting of Tucci's cooking skills, but he couldn't resist a moment to jab at his blonde-haired friend. Sakura, however, didn't really pay attention to the duo, but toward the entire restaurant, her eyes scanning everything around her. Sakura, you okay? Naruto asked with worry lining his voice. The rosette-haired girl blinked, before shaking her head, breaking out of her stupor. Oh yes, quite, Naruto-kun. I was just observing around us, and it seems a bit peculiar that we're the only ones here now, considering it is during the day, she noted, seeing Naruto's understanding look. Ah, I see. Well, technically it's not the lunch rush yet. That's about a half hour from now, which is usually the norm for stands in this part of the village. Seems like you come here a lot, the onyx-eyed boy observed, staring directly at him. He nodded. I do, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't stop here at some point. You could probably say I was brought up on ramen as if it were my life support. To the others, they thought he was simply exaggerating, but to Naruto, it was a daily reality. Ramen was the only food he could really afford on a daily basis, and the stares he got from when he went into other markets for various groups of sustenance made it a bit of a turnoff. So, he just kept with what made him comfortable. But that's not what I wanted to talk about, Naruto dismissed, changing the subject completely. We need to figure out a physical training schedule. Since we're all not that busy, considering we're all the same age and only 8 years old, this is doable with dedication. We need to find our strengths, weaknesses, and then, ultimately, find a way to improve as a trio. Although it wasn't said out in the open, all of 3 of them wanted to be on the exact same genin squad when they became genin, for years down the line. Unlike most starting squads, the hurdle of getting to know your teammates and learning how to work with their skills would already be something they'd have long been accustomed to do. They both nodded in understanding. So, with that being said, Sakura-chan, Sasuke, what do you think your strengths and weaknesses are? And mostly, what kind of jutsu are you guys interested in? Sakura decided to speak up first, while she said, blushing, a bit embarrassed. I've always wanted to become a strong medic ninja. Sasuke rose a brow. Well, aren't most medic ninja support? He asked, genuinely curious, and not trying to dissuade her aspirations, at all. Naruto shook his head. Sasuke, think about it. What's a good foundation for a medic ninja? Near-perfect chakra control and abundant knowledge of the human anatomy. Take Tsunade-sama for example. She's probably the greatest medical ninja in history, and yet, she's probably the most physically strong of the Sannin. From what I was able to read, this was because she used her chakra to amplify her strength 10, 50, even 100-fold. Sakura-chan here could likely do the same thing. Add her knowledge of the human body, and she probably knows more ways to kill a person than how many bowls of ramen I can eat within a week. That last statement earned a healthy chuckle among the 3. Sakura smiled a bit and nodded. He'd hit the nail right on the head, of what she wanted to apply. Sasuke nodded. I see. As for me, I think I'm most interested in is becoming adept with ninjutsu, taijutsu, and maybe a weapon that fits me. However, the first 2 are definite. No questions asked? All right, and as for me, I know for sure I want to be a kenjutsu master. Specifically, I want to own a katana, Naruto declared, which got surprised looks from the 2 of them. He continued on, unperturbed, and like you, Sasuke, I want to improve my ninjutsu, but I'll mainly focus on close-quarters combat with a sword, and if it gets knocked out of my hand somehow, I can continue kicking ass with my bare fists. Sasuke smirked. Interesting choices. But there's also, all right. Order up. Tucci shouted out, interrupting Sasuke, and smiling as he brought out their orders from the back kitchen. 2 bowls of miso ramen for my favorite customer, he said, sitting the 2 bowls in front of him. Naruto drooled at the sight of his favorite food being hot and fresh. 1 bowl of shrimp ramen for the pretty young lady. Tucci grinned, causing Sakura to turn red in embarrassment, and bashfully thanked the old chef. And 1 bowl of miso ramen for our resident Uchiha, he smiled. Enjoy your meal, you 3. With that, Tucci went back to the kitchen, leaving the trio, once again, alone. Naruto picked up his chopsticks and dug in, albeit a bit slower than usual, both in part due to having some newfound manners as well as not wanting to burn his tongue. The Uchiha and the Haruno shrugged and tasted their respective bowls. Naruto had to smirk at their reactions. Oh man, this is good! Sakura exclaimed as she started to eat a bit faster. Sasuke didn't even bother saying anything, but from the way he was slurping, he shared his pink-haired friend's sentiment, and then some. In minutes, Sasuke had finished his bowl with a satisfied grin on his face. Okay, he said, getting back to business. As I was saying, where does that leave Genjutsu? Sasuke asked quizzically. I think that would be suited for me, Sakura spoke up, her bowl about 3/4 of the way finished. I think it would be pretty neat to experiment in the amount of ways I can perform illusions on the enemy. Oh, the possibilities, she gleefully cackled. She was thinking of hundreds of ways she could use it when she got back at the bastard for what he did to her. There was a brief flash of anger, which caused her 2 male companions to visibly cringe. Naruto held his hands up defensively. Whoa, Sakura-chan, did we say something wrong? He inquired a bit fearfully, not wanting to upset her. The pink flower's eyes widened as she frowned in shame. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun, I was thinking about something else. I didn't mean to project my hostilities toward you guys, she said apologetically. Naruto and Sasuke nodded. You want to talk about it? Sakura sighed. I'll tell you in time. But for now, can you please respect my right to not wanting you to know just yet? Okay, they both agreed, though in the back of their minds it still didn't sit well with them. There was more to their pink-haired companion than met the eye. Sasuke spared Naruto a quick glance, which Naruto caught on immediately. One way or the other, they were going to find out and help her in any way they could. I swear to the gods themselves, Sakura-chan, I'll help you in any way I can, and that's a promise of a lifetime, Naruto swore to himself. After an awkward silence, Sakura had decided to change the subject. So where exactly are we going to physically train ourselves? The library isn't exactly an ideal place to practice ninjutsu. Well, Sasuke thought about it. Even though burning books flashed before his mind's eye for amusement, you guys could always come to my place. We have more open space than we know what to do with. Naruto's eyes widened and he could have sworn he heard a growl from the fox in the back of his mind. Would the Uchiha clan really allow him to mingle with the scion, in such close proximity to their estate? I don't know, Sasuke, but do you really think your family will allow outsiders in? I mean, some of them aren't exactly the nicest people around. No offense, of course, he added quickly as to not misrepresent the entire family based on the actions of a few. Sasuke waved him off. None taken. Trust me, a good many of my family are arrogant assholes. To be honest, I really can't stand most of them. But that being said, they shouldn't bother us at all. As far as they should be concerned, we're just 3 normal 8-year-olds trying to become stronger shinobi. I wonder if you would say that if you knew I was a Jinchuriki? Naruto thought a bit sadly. I have plenty of scrolls and weapons too. Of course, we can check out some scrolls from the library, but there's no real need. Sakura crossed her arms. Wouldn't most of your clan's scrolls be, suited for Uchiha? She asked rhetorically. Sasuke opened his mouth to retort, but found himself silent as the logic of her statement started to sink in. Naruto whistled and snickered. Wow, Sasuke, she's got you there, he chided, patting him on the back. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Yeah, I see your point, Sakura, he conceded with a sigh. So tomorrow, then? Sakura looked at him. Tomorrow? It's barely afternoon, so screw that. Let's go back and do some training right now. Cha! She said excitedly. Sasuke laughed at her enthusiasm. Okay, we'll go. He agreed as her eagerness had rubbed off a bit on him at that moment, too. Naruto smiled. Wahoo! Let's go! He yelled, hopping from his stand into the direction of Sasuke's estate, which he had no clue where it was. He scratched his head. Which way? He asked a bit embarrassingly. Sakura shook her head. Naruto-kun, you really need to slow down a bit. Lead the way, Sasuke-kun. The Uchiha scion happily obliged and took lead and showed them the way to his estate. Tucci, meanwhile, had come back with their checks, only to find the 3 missing. Damn brats left without paying, he huffed, before smiling. Ah well, it was good seeing Naruto making some friends his age. I'll let it slide this time. With a headshake, the old chef went back to prepare for the lunch rush. Lightning Country, unknown location, 1,300 hours. Lightning Country, unknown location, 1,300 hours. Hideyoshi Akechi sat in an office in a remote cave about several kilometers from Kumogakure. It had served its purpose for the ultranationalists' hideout, and a secret meeting place for the higher echelons. It was truly built to last, made with the greatest steel money could buy, as well as having several tunnels and rooms that were built all throughout the entire mountain. There was always a way to escape, and since they had built into it so much, a cave-in was unlikely as the mountain was hollow. As for the ultranationalist leader himself, he was a very striking man, appearance-wise. He had snow-white hair, a trait common in this part of the elemental nations, gray eyes, and stood at an impressive 6 feet, 2 inches. He wore a silver battle kimono covered in dark samurai armor, but the most striking thing about him was his large cross-shaped scar on the bridge of his nose. A Chunin-level ultranationalist member came in after knocking and dropped to a knee in respect. "Hideyoshi-sama, he has finally arrived," he spoke cryptically. "Send him in," he said coldly. The Chunin nodded and left. A few minutes later, a man wearing a black coat with red clouds stitched to its fabric came in. He shut the door behind him. The man was tall, possibly taller than even Hideyoshi himself, looked to be in his mid-30s, with an athletic build to boot. His pale skin contrasted with his bright auburn hair, and his many piercings on various parts of his face. But it was his eyes that struck him the most. They were eyes that reminded him of his own, minus the vortex pattern. Those were the eyes of a killer who knew no remorse and would do anything necessary to get the job done. Hideyoshi felt a bit of sweat roll down his brow, a fact that he didn't like. It showed that he was cautious. A fact that he didn't like. The powerful shinobi took a seat and was directly across from him. "I'm glad you could make it," Hideyoshi began. "I'm Hideyoshi. I know who you are," he interrupted with a commanding voice that even the ultranationalist leader had to respect. Hideyoshi Akechi, clan leader of the Akechi clan within the walls of the village hidden in the clouds, as well as the leader of the ultranationalist party. He refused to smirk at that last bullet point. "I see, impressive. May I inquire your name?" Hideyoshi asked respectfully. "No, you may not," he said with a hint of finality. "Let's be frank here, Hideyoshi. I know what your plans are, and you know what I am and what my plans for my organization are. I only decided to come because I didn't trust anyone else to do this exactly as I had intended, lest I'd have to kill them. Believe me, they are hard to replace. Anyhow, on to more pressing matters. You contacted us, and you want our help, meaning, you've somehow discovered our existence. Frankly, I would have killed you all to keep that secret, but you intrigued me with some intelligence, as one of my dear members gather." That was not a threat. Hideyoshi understood very much. He knew damn well that the man could have backed up his words tenfold. "So I'll ask you personally and directly, what is it that you want?" A brief moment of silence passed by as the man stood still as a statue, his facial expressions cold as if stared into the ultranationalist leader's very soul. He sighed and continued on. "I won't bore you on details about my party, which you already know. Our current Reikage is a spineless, weak-minded fool. He and his bastard father have scaled back our forces, and we've lost every war we've participated in since they came to power. They threw away the ideals of the Shodai Reikage, may he rest in eternal peace, in favor of those a bit similar to those disgusting tree-huggers," he growled in flat-out disgust and hatred. The auburn-haired man's face remained impassive as Hideyoshi continued. "However, even we do not have the strength or resources to kill him." The organization member's eyes narrowed as if telling him to correct himself. "Well, I mean at least not in a way that they can pin the blame on us, even though we are technically at fault." "So can you do it?" he scoffed. "There is no man immune to assassination, and A is one of them. Killing him is the easy part, getting away with it? That's an entirely different game, one that could be costly." Hideyoshi sat a bit straighter. "We are offering a lot in exchange," he noted. "Yes, according to what I know, but this is not a simple political assassination. This is the same Yondaime Reikage who fought the legendary Yellow Flash and lived to tell about it. It seems this job would be for me and me alone." "Yes, indeed," Hideyoshi agreed. "You can have his annoying brother as well as the two-tailed feline, herself, as well." The shinobi looked amused. "You seem to want to part ways with such powerful toys so quickly. Does taking over really mean that much to you?" Not that he truly cared, but it did seem odd to the shinobi prompting his question. Hideyoshi waved him off. "No. Our members are powerful, and once we take over the village we'll start using those methods to train our forces from Genin all the way to the Bolt. That will more than offset the cost of losing 2 Jinchuriki. Besides, it's not like they would willingly follow us, anyhow." The man snorted a bit. "I see. Are you confident you can get the people on your side?" "I am," he confirmed. "Fragments of our ideology are sweeping through the village faster than even we anticipated, much to our glee. The pod has to tip over at some point, and that's the moment where we will strike. So with that being said, I know your organization needs money as well. How much?" Hideyoshi asked, getting to the point. "You realize this is a once-in-a-lifetime job, and the man who completes it could live a modest life for the rest of his days, correct?" he asked semi-rhetorically. "When we have seized Kumo, there will be no shortage of cash," he interrupted again. "Half before the assassination and the other half after I complete this job, personally." Hideyoshi grimaced but nodded. "How much?" he asked again. 50 million ryu, he priced simply. Hideyoshi did his best to not flinch. "Half of 50 million? That's a lot of money." "You misunderstand. The whole price is 100 million ryu. The 50 is what you pay up front." Hideyoshi's eyes bulged in shock as he stood up. "Are you insane?" "No," he said calmly, "but my organization is special. Any lesser men would likely have taken the money and ran off for you to never see again. However, we have much more at stake than to simply just take your money and leave you to fight a coup that you'd assuredly lose. Considering you're getting the largest economic power in the elemental nations, as well as a sizable shinobi force, this should be considered chump change. You want me to kill a Kaige? You either pay up, or our business is done here. Hideyoshi gritted his teeth, but the truth of the man's words hit him like a ton of bricks. He was asking the man to assassinate one of the most powerful men in the world. Of course, this wouldn't be cheap. His dream and ambitions all came with a cost, either financially or otherwise. He nodded. Very well, but can you give us a bit of time to come up with the 50 million advance? The mysterious man bobbed his head in acquiescence. That's perfectly acceptable. You already know how to contact us when the time comes. We'll await payment, and then, we shall carry out the assassination at your ready. Once the assassination is complete, taking over the village is your problem, and not ours. We shall expect the 2 Jinchuriki, regardless of whether or not the coup succeeds or not. Understand? I do, Hideyoshi confirmed with a sigh. Who knew taking over a village could be so damn irksome? Very well then. Good day to you, sir, he said before his entire body started to twist and contort. Hideyoshi looked very alarmed as the man's appearance started to change into an ordinary man, and his body felt limp on the floor. Hideyoshi immediately rushed over to check his pulse. His eyes widened. He was never here? He controlled the corpse and made it appear lifelike while it was talking to me? The implications of that fact chilled even the already cold-blooded Akechi clan head. So, it seems I was right in hiring these Akatsuki members. It seems the reports were true. They do certainly live up to the hype. Hideyoshi had a chunin come and dispose of the corpse while he sat back in his office and reviewed some schematics. They had a villager to take over, Hokage Tower, 1,500 hours. I see, Hiruzen said as he read the latest report from a chunin, who quickly dismissed himself from the office soon after he delivered the Hokage some good news. As soon as he left, the old monkey dropped the stoic look off of his face as he allowed himself to smile in contentment. Things started looking up for the village. It had been 9 long hard years since the fateful day that the demon fox had attacked and decimated a good part of the village. Repairs were, as of today, nearly 98%. Normally, reconstruction wouldn't have taken this long, but considering the amount of political clout and setbacks that forced Konoha to focus its efforts elsewhere, rebuilding often took a back seat, sometimes as long as 8 months. He sighed. It was truly ironic, when one thought about it. He stood in favor of ending the Third Great Shinobi World War with the Wagakure years before it actually ended once it turned into Konoha's favor. However, his teammates and his top jounin had convinced him otherwise, which, at the time, he reluctantly agreed despite his personal feelings about what he felt was just genocide wrapped up in a new box. As it turned out, in hindsight, it truly was a blessing in disguise. The Fox had wiped out a good fraction of their forces just for holding it off. Had he not given the order to decimate IWA into unconditional surrender, there was a good chance in his mind they would have taken advantage of their moment of weakness. Even 3 years later with the Hyuga incident, they were still nowhere near equipped for war, and as such he gave in to the demands of the Hidden Cloud. Although this displeased a lot of the higher echelons, they didn't want a war so quickly after 2 disasters, so they reluctantly consented. But now, they had an even bigger problem that threatened the village. This time, however, it was from within. The sexagenarian allowed his mind to travel back in time to his conversation with Danzo earlier this morning. Danzo Shimura took a seat in front of his old rival, the very same chair that Irika Yumino sat upon just a few moments earlier. He stared at Hiruzen with a critical eye, as if daring him to make a single mistake during their little chat. Hiruzen, Danzo began, which caused the Hokage to frown, but he said nothing. Danzo, after all, was the only person he allowed to call him by his first name so openly. Well, besides his old teammates, Koharu Yudatane and Hamura Midokado. Even then, they still rarely referred to him as that, unless it was something personal and deadly serious. Danzo took full advantage of this privilege. Mina Division has uncovered some grave news about one of our resident noble families, the War Hawk explained, getting directly to the point. If Hiruzen had one thing to say he liked about his old rival, it was that he never wasted his time with meaningless small talk which he did not wish to have with the man. The aged Hokage raised an eyebrow, but his facial expression was neutral despite the inner turmoil of emotions he felt at the implication of what his political rival had just said. He took out his pipe, and quickly lit a piece of tobacco inside it with a small, precise katan jutsu. He took a puff before replying. Grave, you say? He repeated, his voice calm and in control. Danzo grimly nodded before doing several hand seals, which caused the Hokage's eyes to widen slightly. That jutsu. A and B, you leave, Hiruzen simply commanded. He felt 4 chakra signatures leave the room from the shadows as Danzo's jutsu took effect, as all sound coming from the two was virtually impossible to hear, even for the canines of the Inuzuka clan. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. You're resorting to using that jutsu and for my ANBU to leave. Do you mind telling me what's going on, Danzo? He asked dangerously. He was not in the mood to play mind games with him. Scratch that. he was never in the mood to play mind games with the man. What if I told you that I have reason to believe that the Uchiha clan wants to take the village for themselves? Danzo flatly asked, dropping a bombshell. There was a deafening silence as the pipe in the sandame's mouth fell out of his mouth, his jaw agape. The tobacco product fell onto his desk, spilling its dark contents all over some of the papers on his desk. Neither of the two noticed, nor would have cared if they had. Danzo, you can't be serious. The Hokage shouted in obvious disbelief at such a gargantuan piece of intelligence being dropped on him so suddenly. Danzo narrowed his eyes. Do you think I would joke about something so damn serious, Hiruzen? He proclaimed, a bit of sarcasm leaking out, feeling a bit insulted at his old rival's implication. This matter was a matter that threatened the existence of the entire village and ultimately, the power scale on a much larger level on the entire continent. The third fire shadow balled his hands up in fists, as he forced himself to calm down. He took a deep breath, and sighed. What proof do you have of this? He inquired, interlocking his fingers and resting his chin on his hands. The village's darkness huffed, but nonetheless bobbed his head. I may not have complete confirmation, but it's enough for us to take the intelligence very seriously. He nodded. I take it that it was likely an Uchiha who said a bit too many words. He deduced. Danzo smirked. Your gift of insight is truly a sight to behold, Hiruzen, Danzo praised, but the Hokage knew that, at best, it was a backhanded compliment. He said nothing, which Danzo took as a sign to continue onward. One of mine A and B overheard a few Uchiha during the police station, off-duty and intoxicated to hell and back. Were the situation not so serious, Hiruzen might have found the sight a bit comical. You know my policy with your root division, Danzo. I feel as if you're taking advantage of my generosity, the Hokage noted with a dark edge lining his voice. Officially, on record, Nagat publicly disbanded by Hiruzen himself. However, to slightly appease his rival, he offered a compromise. He could keep his little private army, but he'd have to fund it out of his own pocket and not from the village's treasury, which was how all shinobi genin to ANBU were paid as a monthly stipend. Technically, Ni could be ordered around by the Sandame, but he rarely, if ever, did so, wanting to keep them out of his hair as much as possible. He only asked that whatever Danzo did was legal and he didn't overstep his boundaries. Danzo sneered, a bit irritated at the old monkey's hypocrisy. You send your ANBU to spy on others all the time, not to mention your Tongen no Jutsu, telescope technique, which you use to keep track of the Uzumaki, he pointed out. He sighed, and conceded. A fair point you make. Now, then what did they say? Danzo carefully recited everything verbatim. We all know that Itachi is our ticket to the top, you know? Yeah, we know the people at the top won't know what hit them. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow, though it was clear he felt truly disturbed at the oblique threat toward his teammates, as well as himself. I see, he neutrally responded. There may be a chance I'm wrong, Danzo noted, a bit offhandedly, but alcohol is one of the world's greatest truth serums. I'd rather act now and confirm I'm wrong, than do nothing and watch Konoha be cut down, starting with the branches. Hiruzen sat in relative silence as he started to reflect off of what he'd just been told. On one hand, the Uchiha had served faithfully for the past 40 years as the civilian peacekeepers and upheld civil and common law across the village. Despite being told to move to another part of the village, from what he could tell, they didn't complain, considering to where they moved had twice as much space and allowed the clan to expand to the size it presently stood. But then again, the Uchiha were always mysterious and kept mostly to themselves, even more secretive than their current pseudo-rivals, the Hyuga clan. Could they truly hold 4 decades worth of animosity from an edict his old sensei conjured up eons ago? They hadn't made any attempts to protest their current situation as of late, so why do it now? Did they feel shackled to the chains of destiny set forth by their Senju rivals? It was true, the clan really never got a chance to really lead the village, despite being partnered with the Senju clan over 80 years ago. There was the Shodai Hokage, who was a Senju, the Naidame Hokage, also a Senju, himself, trained by the Senju brothers, and the Yandame Hokage, who, by proxy, was trained by Jiraiya who was trained by him. The Senju cycle was continuous and ongoing even after their apparent near extinction. Could he really risk ignoring it? He finally nodded his head in acquiescence. Very well then, Danzo. I'll try to find out what I can, and until we have confirmed these allegations are false, we will treat the Uchiha as a threat quietly. However, I'm sure you also know who I want to get on this as well. Danzo knew immediately to whom he referred. You want to see the Uchiha prodigy himself, eh? You play a dangerous game, my old friend, he warned, a bit of amusement passing through his head. Then again, so do I. Hiruzen ignored his comment and stared intently at him. Say we do confirm it, how do you say we proceed with the executions? He asked with narrowed eyes. Danzo was not amused at the insinuation, and in turn, gave the Sarutobi a death glare. Do you really think so lowly of me, Hiruzen? That I would condone the execution of those innocent and ignorant to what their elders are planning? Here, I was thinking you knew me better than anyone else. The tranquil fury that slipped through contradicted the man's stance of an emotionless tool was the best type of warrior on the battlefield. I do, Hiruzen stated matter-of-factly, eyes glinting with an ancient power that threatened to pour forth. You tend to go over the top with your zeal in protecting the village. You knew I wouldn't put up with you killing the innocent, of which I'd have to kill you myself. The tension in the dead silent room was so thick you could slice it with a kunai, as both men were testing each other's patience and will. Unknowingly, or perhaps they didn't know, they released small amounts of murderous intent toward one another, a game of chicken. Who would cave first? Danzo, seemingly impressed, backed off. You win this round, Hiruzen. He refused to sneer as badly as he wanted to at the moment. He stood up. In any case, I'll keep you informed as best as I can. While you do your own investigating, I'll get to the root of this. Whether or not Danzo's pun was intentional, Hiruzen wasn't sure, but he chose not to comment and oddly nodded. I will inform Koharu and Hamura of this, at the next possible convenience, he plainly stated. While there were secrets that he, as Hokage, only knew, this was something that all of the higher-ups needed to be aware of. It was going to stay that way, too, until he deemed it necessary. The shaggy dark hair shook when the militaristic shinobi bowed his head. I'll keep in touch, Hiruzen. Then the commander vanished out of sight. Please don't, Hiruzen intoned bitterly with a sidelong look. He breathed out and placed both of his hands over his face in slight defeat. Just what he needed, another fucking shitstorm. He needed someone. He didn't trust Danzo as far as he could throw him, which was admittedly pretty damn far, considering how powerful he was. He needed a mole. Someone on the inside that could confirm what the leader had informed him. Then, it suddenly clicked as the Sarutobi's face brightened up instantly in his epiphany. What better person fit the criteria he needed than Uchiha Itachi himself? The third Hokage sighed as he brought himself back into the present. Sometimes, he hated his job with a passion. Such unwanted and, truthfully, unneeded bullshit to deal with. He would speak with Itachi within the week, which gave him time to plan some form of action with Hamura and Koharu. He groaned. Great, I still haven't told them, yet? Just peachy, came his sarcastic reply. He sat back down and took out his crystal ball. Naruto, perhaps you'll put a smile on my face, despite the arduous road that lies before both of us. Uchiha Clan Estate, 1,515 hours. Mikoto Uchiha was in the kitchen smiling to herself as she washed a dish from a meal she had fixed for Itachi, who had left earlier. But her older son wasn't the real reason she was in such a great mood. Truthfully, it was his younger sibling. Yesterday, she had been truly worried about her younger child as he almost was never cold and hostile toward her. He had gone out on his own, and came back later that night. This morning, the boy was beaming with excitement as he genuinely smiled. Guess all that training must have made him a happy child, she giggled as she dried her hands. Suddenly, her senses went on alert as she felt 3 chakra signatures, 1 familiar, and 2 unknown. Despite being a housewife, she was still a retired jounin. Those skills just didn't leave overnight. She deduced that he was bringing new friends over, which may have explained his mood this morning. Ka-san! She heard her younger son's voice call out, to which she smiled. I'm in the kitchen! She yelled back, hearing her son's footsteps. Sasuke, a rosette-haired young female, and her eyes widened in surprise. Him? Sasuke had befriended him? If no one were watching, Mikoto would have been leaping for utter joy. So it seems fate would want me to keep our original promise, Kushina-chan, the Uchiha matriarch mused to herself. She then put on a motherly smile as she slightly knelt to their level. So, Sasuke-kun, who are your new friends? She sweetly inquired. Sasuke looked a bit embarrassed, but passed the spotlight toward his companions. Sakura shook her head. I'm Sakura Haruno, Uchiha-san, she bowed respectfully. Mikoto waved her off. Please, Sakura-san, call me Mikoto. You don't have to be so formal with me at any time, understood? Sakura blushed in embarrassment, but nodded. Of course, Mikoto-san, she replied in acceptance. The onyx-eyed female turned to Naruto, who was looking a bit shy. Mikoto frowned. Does he know about the fox? Think I'll treat him like some of the ignorant morons we call villagers? She dwelled to herself. She inwardly sighed, before feeling determined. She was going to make Naruto feel welcome in any way she could. And you, young man? She delicately questioned. Naruto looked at her wide-eyed. To her, she felt genuine. He looked into her eyes, and saw no signs of hate, malice, bigotry, or distrust. As cheesy as it sounded, Naruto wanted to hug her right then and there just for not being a tool that simply fitted in with the rest of the workbox. Naruto grinned at her. Naruto Uzumaki, Mikoto-san, he introduced, holding out his hand, which Mikoto gladly shook. A pleasure to meet you, Naruto-kun, she chimed. So, Sasuke-kun, any particular reason you bring these two all the way out to our humble abode? She had pretty good idea why, but she wanted to hear it from Sasuke's lips. Mothers did always ask queries they knew the answer to. No? Well, Sasuke started sheepishly, scratching the back of his head. Well, I met these guys, he stopped, seeing Sakura's look. Guy and girl, he corrected, which caused Mikoto to inwardly smirk. Last night, and this morning, we went to the library to learn together. Mikoto raised an eyebrow. Sounds like you three are a future squad in the making, she noted. The three of them looked at each other. This was the first time what was openly on all three of their minds had been brought right out in the open. After a pregnant silence, and seeing the serious looks at each other, they all nodded. There was no doubt now. Naruto spoke confidently. Yes, it would seem so. I wouldn't have it any other way. That statement sent shockwaves down both of his companions' spines. Did Naruto think that highly of them? Naruto-kun, Sakura thought in wonder and awe. Well, Naruto, I'll admit it. The feeling is completely mutual, he admitted with a smile. The fact that he only knew him for only 2 days didn't matter to him. It was one of those things that you just instinctively knew what was going to be something special. The female Uchiha smiled. Kushina would be so proud if she could see them now. So I take it you came back here for training because we have plenty of room? She deduced coolly. Sasuke groaned audibly. You have got to stop with that mind-reading thing, Ka-san, he grated. Naruto and Sakura were totally confused, but Mikoto only laughed. Sasuke-kun, I'm your mother. I know these things, remember? She asked rhetorically. Sasuke only huffed, causing his own friends to laugh. Wow, Sasuke, your mom's a mind reader, eh? Naruto grinned. Oh, he could make so many jokes down the line with this tidbit of info. Poor guy never caught a break. Sakura smiled, but inwardly, she was a bit envious of Mikoto and Sasuke's relationship. If only my mother were like Mikoto-san. Maybe then, she would notice the abuse, she reflected solemnly. She banished those thoughts from her head. Too many times today she had dwelled on the past, and it was time to move forward and look ahead toward a shining future. She had all the time in the world for her revenge on Tetsuya. Constantly thinking about it would distract her from training. So what were you three planning on doing today? She asked curiously, changing the subject completely. Well, to be honest, we weren't sure, Naruto answered honestly, scratching his chin in thought. So she began making hand signals to gather her thoughts. You three were just planning on winging it? Yup, pretty much. That about covers it. She sighed and palmed her face, while shaking her head. You guys know you won't get very far without proper guidance, you know? Well, yeah, but we were just planning on perfecting the basics before moving on to other stuff, Sakura explained. I don't know about these guys, but I plan on blazing through the academy like it's a child's plaything. I'm with Sakura-chan on this one, Naruto agreed, nodding seriously. Sasuke smirked. Blow away the competition, eh? That sounds fun. Count me in as well. Mikoto looked at the three in a new light. Blow away the competition? While the Konoha Shinobi Academy wasn't like ANBU training, it wasn't a cakewalk, either, as there were some truly difficult hurdles to overcome. Well, for starting out Shinobian training anyhow. To Genin and above, it was pitifully easy. These three did seem determined maybe she could. She shook her head. Oh, why the hell not? It was perfect, and it killed many birds with one stone. But before that, she needed to know one final thing. Mikoto got a serious look on her face, one that didn't go unnoticed by the three soon-to-be child assassins. They all tensed up a bit, subconsciously. You three tell me. How serious are you about this? Mikoto-san, all my life, I've wanted to be a shinobi so I could one day be acknowledged and accepted. I'm willing to risk my entire life, just for a shot at that, became the blonde-haired male's reply. His onyx and jade-eyed friends were starting to see their cerulean-orbed companion in a new outlook, as their respect for him shot up a notch. I want to overcome all the obstacles that logic would dictate that I wouldn't get far, considering my background, Sakura began next. I want to be a well-rounded splendid kunoichi. With Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun here, I truly believe that it can happen. The Uzumaki and Uchiha smiled, genuinely touched. Kas-and you already know the situation about my brother. Sure, I want to please my father, but really, I need to learn to please myself. Otherwise, I'll just end up disappointed. These two have given me some new perspectives. Now, I don't feel so alone. You and me both, Sasuke/Sasuke-kun, came the collective thoughts of Sakura and Naruto. Mikoto hummed. I see, she said neutrally, although, inwardly, she was practically jumping for joy. Well, in light of you three taking this seriously, it's decided then. What's decided? Sasuke asked, a bit confused. Who's going to be your new sensei from now until you graduate? Mikoto revealed, grinning. All three collectively went wide-eyed. Why you? Sasuke asked beyond belief, just to be sure his ears weren't deceiving him. His mother was going to teach them ninjutsu? He palmed his face. Why in the hell didn't he think of asking for her help before? She was a retired jounin and had plenty of time to spend helping him with jutsu, for fuck's sake. Sasuke's inward berating of his own stupidity and lack of foresight was cut short as his mother nodded. Yes. Come on, it'll be fun. You get to hang out with your mom, as well as your two friends, and, at the same time, be 10 steps ahead of all the others in your class. Sakura beamed. That's so awesome. Cha! She said excitedly, while Naruto plainly smirked, but she declared in a warning tone, I'm going to work you three hard. I won't accept anyone giving up. Is that clear? Hi, Mikoto-sensei. They shouted in unison. She smiled. Mikoto-sensei, eh? She liked the sound of that. Well, didn't that have a nice ring to it? Good. All right, Sasuke-kun, show Sakura-chan to the training ground. I need to talk to Naruto-kun alone. I'll be there in 5 minutes. This won't take long. The raven-haired Uchiha looked at his mom, and shrugged before leading a slightly worried Sakura away from the house. Naruto was looking confused, too, wondering what the matriarch wanted to talk to him alone about. She waited a few moments to make sure they were out of earshot. Naruto-kun, do you know? She asked, choosing her words carefully, so she wouldn't break the Sandame's edict. Now, Naruto understood perfectly. If you're referring to the fur ball stuck in my gut, then yes, I do know. Imagine the shock when I found out that I'm a pariah for something I had no say in, he responded bitterly. Mikoto gave the boy a look of sympathy. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, she sincerely said. It's a shame a village that's supposedly as great as ours has such ignorance and intolerance. Well, I'm going to change that, by becoming a legendary ninja, where they'll have no choice but to respect me, Naruto declared. Mikoto smiled and ruffled his hair. Of that, Naruto-kun, I have no doubt you will. Now then, go on and find the others. I'm going to my room for a change of wardrobe, okay? Okay. Naruto brightened up, preparing to leave. Oh, and Naruto-kun, Mikoto called out, stopping him in his tracks. He turned to look at her. Yes, Mikoto-sensei, you're not alone, Naruto smiled. I know not anymore. With that said, Naruto ran out the door, keen on finding his two good friends. Mikoto watched him head out the door with a serene smile adorned on her face. Uchiha Training Grounds, 1,530 hours. Sasuke and Sakura were currently touring the custom-built Uchiha Training Ground. It was around 10,000 square feet, with various training dummies, a small lake about 15 feet deep at its lowest point, and about 50 feet in diameter. It was nothing special, but one could practice water techniques and water walking if one wished to do so. With so much space, the 3 8-year-olds were free to practice as hard as they wanted without interfering with the other. The small forest in the area could help them build up their teamwork in various conditions. Wow, Sasuke-kun, your estate is amazing, she said in awe at the size and diversity among it. It's no big deal, the scion modestly countered. I just happened to be born lucky. He simply shrugged. You know, that's one of the things I love about you guys, Sakura said, sitting down lotus style, which Sasuke followed suit perpendicular to her. Pray tell, what's that? Sasuke inquired. Well, you and Naruto-kun are so modest and humble. Admittedly, I can get a big head and a bit hot-headed because of my intelligence over some of the girls I know. I see, Sasuke replied, thinking about it. Well, I've personally seen what happens when a guy who thinks he's hot stuff goes up against an opponent he thinks he'll crush, and then gets his butt utterly handed to him. That behind got handed to said person, by none other than his older brother, Itachi, by express delivery. The rosette-haired girl couldn't help but laugh at Sasuke's amusing choice of words. That butt-kicking must have been a sight to behold, she noted. Sasuke nodded. It was. But anyhow, yeah, I try to rise above the stigma of my clan's arrogance. I'd rather know my limits and live another day rather than being some moron who feels he's entitled to something because of his clan. I have no doubt some in my clan feel that way. Sakura stared at him a bit, in awe. Wow, Sasuke-kun, you really do want to rise above them. He shrugged. Hey, when you live in your brother's shadow, you got to stand out somehow, and I figured, why not there? Sakura nodded in understanding. So what do you think your mom wanted Naruto-kun for? Beats me, I can't think of a real reason my. Sasuke. Sakura-chan. Well, speak of the devil, Sasuke said, shaking his head standing up. Naruto. He called out waving his hand, hoping the blonde boy could see him. Over here. Naruto ran over to the pair. Damn, took me forever to find you guys. They looked at him. How long were you looking? Sakura asked. Maybe 30 seconds or so? Naruto laughed. Both pairs of eyes started to twitch. You're calling 30 seconds forever? Are you screwing with me right now? Sasuke rhetorically asked. Nope, Naruto snickered, for the sole purpose of getting a rise out of the Uchiha. It worked flawlessly. You idiot! He yelled comically, before Sakura sighed. Oh boys? She pleasantly chimed, before they turned to her, and she gave them what they now refer to as the look. Need I remind you two that I have perfectly capable hands that can keep you two in line? Now, do I need to step in, or are you going to stop this banter before I tear your fucking ears off? With such a force and emphasis that for the second time today, Sakura had nearly caused both males to piss their pants. Never, since the three met, did they hear Sakura ever drop the F-bomb, and to hear it come out of her mouth was shocking enough, even in spite of the threat. No! They both shouted at the same time, to which Sakura smirked. Oh, was it good having control over some males, rather than the other way around? Damn it. There she went, thinking about him again. Ugh, she was glad this training was distracting her for the most part. So you've three already picked a spot. Very good, came the voice of Mikoto as she walked forward with what appeared to be a jounin outfit very similar to what most wore. It wasn't customized at all, except only to compensate for her medium size. At the sight of the retired jounin, all three immediately got serious and stood at attention. This action caused Mikoto to blink before she chuckled. Okay, guys, you have to relax, because I'm going to teach you the basic of the basics. So what are we learning first, Ka-san? Sasuke questioned. Mikoto smiled. All three of you sit down. A wave of confusion swept through them, but they nonetheless complied and did as they were instructed. The older woman joined them on the soft grass as a small, but gentle breeze swept through the training ground. Meditation? Naruto asked, dreading it. Yes, but with a bit of a twist, Mikoto remarked, closing her eyes. What do you mean, sensei? Sakura inquired with unabashed interest. You all know the basics of chakra, I presume? She heard three heads nod, before continuing. I want you to try and feel for the area around you, by spreading your chakra around you. While you three were chatting, I placed a dozen or so stones filled specifically with my chakra around the training ground for you to feel. I want you to try and locate them by just feeling your chakra around the entire field, and then mouth off their specific locations to me. Obviously, you'll have your eyes closed during all this. We'll work on precision, speed, and accuracy at a later date, but for now just try to find it by spreading your chakra like a bedspread. Are you implying that, eventually, we'll be able to thin our chakra signatures that travel and search for these stones like a snake slithering in the grass searching for prey, then say a spider making a giant web of chakra to search for it? Came the voice of Naruto. Excellent analogies, Naruto-kun, and you are indeed correct. There's also another benefit to you all doing this. Inevitably, your signatures will overlap with each other, constantly, until you become precise enough. Sakura caught on immediately to what she was implying. So in a sense, we'll know by second nature of whether or not a person is friend or foe. We'll be so used to each other's chakra that we'll know who's who in an instant. You hit the nail on the head, Sakura-chan. Mikoto praised, which caused the girl's self-confidence to rise. The Uchiha matriarch had to admit it. These kids were extremely impressive, with their insight and intelligence. I wonder just how far their potential goes. Well, in any case, I'm going to see it through. So, Kao-san, what's this technique called? Her son asked. I'm glad you asked, Sasuke-kun, Mikoto said, grinning. It's called the Chakra Hankyurai no Jutsu, Chakra Echolation Technique. It can be used more for the exercise I'm having you do. Like, for instance, finding the location of things you can't see, scouting for traps and ploys, makibishi, among many things. I'll leave it to you guys to learn it, and use it to its full potential. All three nodded. Sensei, what are the hand seals for it? Sakura questioned. Mikoto shook her head. While there are seals for this jutsu, it can be done without them. Eventually, you're going to have to mold your chakra without the use of seals, like say using it to get out of a tight spot, if you have a crippled use of your arms. You get what I'm saying? Sasuke and Sakura frowned, but Naruto was busy contemplating Mikoto's reasoning while they voiced their opinions. But Ka-san, aren't we supposed to start off molding our chakra with hand seals? You did say you were giving us the basics. That's when the light bulb went off in Naruto's head. Ah. Don't you guys get it? It makes complete sense now, he declared. Mikoto raised an eyebrow. Did he get it that quickly? How, Naruto-kun? Enlighten us, gladly. Think about it. If you're so used to molding chakra with seals, once we eventually start learning years down the road sealless chakra manipulation, can you imagine how difficult that would be? You'd get used to using seals, which made everything infinitely easier since the seals essentially did the molding for you in a sense. Now, if we were to start off molding chakra on our own and we get pretty good at it, learning to control our chakra with hand seals would seem like child's play compared to the hurdle of this technique, Naruto explained in a scholarly fashion. Mikoto smiled, as Naruto's logic sunk into both the Uchiha Scion and the Haruno. Wow, Naruto-kun, you really are something, aren't you? He sheepishly grinned. I only figured it out because of what Sasuke said before. It's no big, Mikoto nodded. Okay, you three, close your eyes and I want you to feel for your chakra core and manipulate it outwardly. Then I want you to mouth the location of a stone to me once you locate one. Trust me, I can read lips very well. Sasuke snorted a bit. She's definitely not lying there. All three 8-year-olds shut their eyes as they both felt inner peace with themselves. Mikoto was specifically paying attention to the blonde most. I wonder if the fox will make it difficult for him to control his chakra. But then again, considering who his parents are, he'd have a difficult time controlling it with or without him. He's definitely got the hardest road ahead of him. Only time would tell if she was right or not, but for now, she would watch and guide them in any way she could. Just like a sensei and a mother should. Kumogakure, 2nd District Akechi Clan Estate, 2 weeks later, 1,200 hours. Hideyoshi was not in the most pleasant of moods as he took a stroll toward an outside balcony that overlooked a mountain pass. Even the ultra-nationalist leader had to admit the natural beauty of his homeland as he watched several massive eagles flow through the skies without a care in the world. A female landed on her nest, bringing fresh sustenance for her young. This brought a small smile to the Akechi clan head. Cold-hearted he was, admittedly, but that was only towards humans. He had a true appreciation for animal life, especially those of the raptor taxonomy class. He chuckled to himself. Okay, that may be because my clan has several raptor summoning contracts, but hey, he mused to himself, rarely able to do so certain times of the day. He truly loved these magnificent creatures. Able to soar through the skies at hundreds of kilometers an hour and spot prey with their marvelous eyesight. The eagles around Lightning Country grew to tremendous sizes not seen, literally, anywhere else in the world. The contracts that his clan owned had them even larger. Suddenly, a male falcon, about a story high, landed on the railing, looking at the ultranationalist curiously. He got a smirk on his face. Oh, you want something, boy? he purred as looked at the bird of prey. He'd been in contact with them for so long that he could instantly tell a gender by just glancing at them. The raptor seemed to understand him as it bobbed his head. Hideyoshi smiled at the falcon before reaching into a bag that was on the floor that held dead, but sanitized for easy human handling, animals that were commonly the prey of all the birds in the valley. Hideyoshi rarely got to feed one of them when they happened to stop by, so he always kept a bag on hand outside and forbade anyone from touching or moving it without his permission. "You want the fish, don't you?" he asked a bit playfully. The falcon's mouth was practically drooling at the catfish in the clan head's hand. He moved away, the falcon following him by walking across the railing. After a few moments of teasing the poor bird, Hideyoshi finally gave him what he wanted. The bird gulped down the catfish like it was simply a midday snack. It cried out in approval, and brought its head down toward Hideyoshi and rubbed it against him. Hideyoshi happily returned the favor, gently rubbing the creature's feathered neck. He felt a bit at peace. No more worrying about that bastard he called a rakeage. No more worrying about their plans. Hell, not even making sure that Hideyoshi-sama. A seemingly panicked voice came from nowhere, which scared the bird he was currently petting. Its docile nature instantly became one of being frightened and it flew off, nearly scratching the Akechi clan head in the face. Hideyoshi growled as he turned angrily to the voice, which belonged to a subordinate of his, Akira. The petite female had a small frame, and had the outfit of a Kumo jounin, with a chikuto strapped toward her back. She wore no cloud headband, a common symbol of loyalty toward the ultranationalists. The snowy-haired jounin bowed before him. "You had better have a damn good reason for interrupting that moment, because I know of some hawks in this valley who would love to have a taste of flesh as delicate as yours," he coldly sneered. A bit of sweat rolled down Akira's brow as she was used to him making threats, but that didn't mean they were any less serious. "1,000 apologies, my lord, but it appears we've found something that needs to be of your attention." His eyes narrowed. "And what is that?" "We've come across an unknown backer. We have enough money to make the down payment for Red Clouds," Akira said, choosing her words carefully. Hideyoshi had a strict rule of not discussing the coup or anything related. He didn't even trust everyone in his own clan or the fact that the place could be bugged somehow. The clan head was always paranoid, but then again, how could he afford not to be as such, considering his plans? "I see," he responded as neutral as possible. "An unknown backer? How could they have known about the deal?" "No, that was impossible. They did publicly request money for donations, like any political party could. It was necessary, and most of all, it was legal. Either way, they needed to find out who and most of all why. While it pleases me that we are able to make the payment, I'd rather not have unknown allies that can strike me cold in the middle of the night, Akira. Find out what you can, and report back to me," he ordered, seeing her bow her head. A small smirk adorned his face. "Oh, and tell Sayuri to order her division to refocus efforts elsewhere." Sayuri Ichiso, the lieutenant commander of the Bolt Reconnaissance Division. Truly a powerful kunoichi she was, and the village's foremost expert on reconnaissance. All information she found, she reported directly to either her commander or the Raikage. "It's too bad for you, but she works for us, and not you and your disgusting ideals. Truly ironic how you consider some of your closest friends are likely your worst enemies." "It shall be done," Akira acknowledged, before vanishing in a swirl of wind. Hideyoshi smiled evilly. He knew that Akira would get the job done, quickly, effectively, and efficiently. After all, she was his daughter. Raikage Tower, 1st District, around same time. Sat in his office, a bit more tranquil than usual. His talk with Dari over 2 weeks ago had really calmed his nerves down, and he wasn't in as bad a mood as he used to be. However, the ultranationalists had been relatively quiet a bit over the past few weeks. Hideyoshi rarely made any public appearances, nor were there any campaign rallies. In the next 6 months, Districts 4, 5, 8, and 11 were up for election, and he had been preparing the incumbents from the United Cloud, A's political party, so they wouldn't lose their seats to the ultranationalists. Hell, the third political party, the conservative Virga, was better than those bastards. It spoke volumes of how bad the situation was in the place he had known as home for decades. This was one of the reasons why he had made a call for the Bolt commander, himself, Isa Hayasaka. The Black Operations and Lightning Tactics Division was a truly fearsome organization, one created under the Nidame Raikage during the Second Great Shinobi World War. It had a simple command structure. At the top was an overall commander, a position currently in the hands of Isu. Then, after that, they were separated into 4 divisions: assault, interrogation, reconnaissance, and assassination. Each division was held by an LC, or lieutenant commander, who reported directly to Isu. Each division was further separated into squads of 4. Each squad was headed by a captain, and under the captains the regular Bolt forces were simply called grunts. To symbolize membership and rank, members wore custom-made haori that were worn over their uniforms, each one of a different color. The commander's haori was jet black, the LCs were white, the captains were a dark red, and the grunts navy blue. Any member of the organization, grunt or otherwise, was considered extremely dangerous, with the assault team being considered hyperlethal in their files. All of their dossiers were completely classified, due to their missions being off the record. The lieutenant commanders and the commander were also a sort of deterrents, along with their Jinchuriki. Hell, if A was honest with himself, he could likely see Isu replacing him as Raikage someday. He snorted a bit. Yeah, if we make it that far, he intoned a bit sadly. He then heard a knock on his door. Speak of the damn devil. Come in, Isu, A permitted. The door opened and the Raikage took in the presence of his closest friends and allies. Isu was truly a striking man. He was well-toned, and stood at a height of about 6 feet, 4 inches. Aqua blue irises and chocolate-colored, neatly swept brown hair with a single strand hanging from his forehead. He wore an ebony-hilted nodachi on his left waist, black and red shinobi pants, and a white, long-sleeved shirt that extended out from his haori, which, on the back, had the kanji for bolt with a lightning strike in the center. Truly, if Isu made more public appearances, he'd be an instant heartthrob for the ladies. You wanted to see me, Raikage-sama? He asked, rhetorically keeping a smile on his face as he sat down. Drop the formalities, Isu, you know how I hate when you do that. Sometimes, his insistence on being polite annoyed the lightning shadow to no end. Isu blinked. Raikage-sama. Surely, you can't mean that, he protested. He absolutely refused to call the leader of his village by anything less than his title. Please, Isu, that's an order, came A's stern reply. Isu sighed, but nodded, nonetheless. If you say so, he hesitated. Damn, that felt uncomfortable. He shifted around in his seat a bit. Shook his head in amusement. Anyhow, how goes the organization? He inquired, deciding with an appetizer conversation, before diving into the full-course meal. It's going well, Rai. A glared at him. He corrected a bit sheepishly before continuing. Nothing new to report on the intelligence front, but everything seems relatively normal for all 5 of the villages. The hefty lightning shadow outwardly hummed. I see. He glanced at the nodachi on Isu's waist. It was the legendary Reiansu, Thunder Cloud Talon, the blade of the one gained after signing the contract with the Thunderbirds. No one had wielded the blade in decades, a testament to the will of Isu. Only one pure of heart could sign the contract with the mythical masters of his village's natural element. But I know that's not why you called me here, is it? He deduced, a trace of desolation in the young commander's voice as he frowned a bit, aside. Yes, it isn't. It's about the ultranationalists. Suddenly, the solemn and saddened expression on the Bolt commander's face was instantly replaced by eyes dangerously narrowing. What about them? He asked in a frigid tone, which chilled A to the bone. As much as it pains me to say this, Isu, we need to defeat them with political muscle and not brute force, A stated plainly. But why? We know they're basically saying, we want to take over the village and fuck you if you don't like it, the commander cursed, which, considering the subject matter, didn't surprise A in the least. Although he was registered as an independent voter for his district, he still backed the United Cloud, although a bit discreetly. Isu hated the ultranationalists with a passion rivaling the blazes of 1,000 suns. The Yondaime Raikage had never really asked him what the underlying reason for his abhorrence was, but alas, at this point, it didn't even matter, so he never bothered asking. I know that, Isu, the dark-skinned male calmly allayed, but we have to do this with as little bloodshed as possible. I'm not going to risk a civil war for your zeal for blood, he warned. Isu looked down, a bit ashamed. I understand, sir. I apologize for my behavior. I nodded, accepting it. I know you mean well, Isu. Normally you seem so peaceful, tranquil, and dare I say it, a pacifist. I am, to some extent, but when it comes to them I make an exception, he growled, though a bit contained, as he had regained some of his composure. Hideyoshi and his cronies truly bring out the worst in humanity, don't they? The older ninja asked. Yes, however we may not be so different, Isu admitted, his cerulean eyes shifting off to the side. Now, the Yondaime was truly confused. Isu saying that he shared any similarities towards his enemies was a cause for alarm. Clarify what you mean, he commanded. Men were slaves bound by the shackles of our morals and kept docile by the whips of our faith, Isu replied to a stunned A. He sounded like a true, wizened sage. The ultranationalists, you and even I, were all bound by what we consider to hold us back. How far will we go? Will we shatter the chains and then become the whip that controls the faith of our underlings? Isu, he quickly shook his head. Don't mind me, I'm just rambling. He dropped his near sage-like aura and favored his normal upbeat attitude, well as upbeat as he could get while discussing the ultranationalists. Anyhow, I nodded, but made a mental note to ask him about it later. As I was saying, we'll need to defeat them with political muscle instead. There's an election coming up, one we cannot afford to lose. That will put the number of seats at about equal, depending on how many districts they win. So what if they gain all 4? Isu inquired, wanting to hear his Kage's worst-case scenario contingency. Then may the gods help us all. So, knowing that fact, we need to sway public opinion back toward our favor. You know this won't be easy, right? I grunted, a bit annoyed at the brusque way he had of putting things. I know, you don't have to state the obvious, Isu, he said gruffly. Isu winced, but said nothing. I looked at the clock, and sighed. I have a meeting with the council in about 5 minutes or so. You're dismissed for now. The Bolt commander nodded and stood up. If I may ask one thing, sir, how do you expect me to sway public opinion? The Raikage thought for a moment. Well, you could always ask Darui. He may not look like it, but he knows a thing or two about politics. Isa's eyes widened in realization as he face-palmed. Ga! Thank you, Reikage-sama. He blurted out, which startled the Kage. Seeing this, Isa quickly explained, I promised his sister I'd visit her today. You know about her condition, right? There was silence before he replied. Yes, I do. Isa looked down sadly. If only we could find a cure, he frowned, eyes down, swallowed hard. I indeed. Well, Reikage-sama, take care. We'll beat those bastards, eventually. Isa smiled, holding out a closed fist. Chuckled, amused. He really did show his playful side only to him, in contradiction to how stoic he was when it came to his duties. The swift-footed wrestler gave him a grin back and returned the fist bump, like he did his little brother, B. Count on it, the Reikage acknowledged. The brunette gave a short bow, and then phased out of sight in an impressive burst of speed. The Reikage shook his head as he stood up and decided to head to the council halls early, a smirk on his face. Truly, the commander had put him in a good enough mood to where he could deal with these bureaucrats. On second thought, he looked at the bottom drawer and pulled it open and took out a bottle. Screwdog sake is a man's true best friend, he declared before taking a drink. Yep, best friends indeed. 4th District, Dary's residence, 1,600 hours. Dary was currently sitting down in front of a bed where his sister lay half asleep, but for all practical purposes, didn't have a clue what was going on in the outside world. Ayasaki Dary spoke softly, clenching his fists. His younger sister was barely in her teens, yet she had already come down with a disease that had baffled the medic corps. She was on her last legs, and maybe had another year or two at the very most to live. He intently listened to the soft sound of her breathing in and out, as she slept peacefully. Even with her disease, the dark-skinned female always had a smile on her face. Damn it! The Jounin half yelled. It wasn't fair. Why should someone as sweet as her fall victim to the horrors of disease, while truly vile men live healthy lives? That sheer fact caused a bitter tear to roll down his cheek as he covered his face. He was a shinobi, he had killed, and he had been nearly killed, but even then, he was still human. Nisan, he heard a voice, which caused his eyes to go wide. Ayasaki had awakened during his inner turmoil and sat up straighter. Even in a hospital gown, his sister was still beautiful as her chocolate brown eyes stared back at him. Are you okay? Her voice was lined with concern. He quickly wiped his tears away and laughed a bit. Oh, come on, sis, you know me. Big bro's got to be strong, right? Ayasaki frowned. Nisan, don't lie to me. She reached out and touched his shaking hand. Just tell me what's bothering you. She looked at him attentively in the eye. Dary sighed in defeat, but then smiled. His sister was a master at getting him to talk when he didn't want to. Stop being such a stoic bastard, she'd say to him playfully. He smiled, though more so at the memory rather than his sister in front of him. Sis, you know with your illness you might. Dary was starting to choke up, before his sister squeezed his hand. Nisan, I'm not afraid, she told him sternly. But, no. I don't want my Nisan being scared for me. I can't have you being worried about me at random times. What if it happens during a mission? You'll be distracted and you'll never be able to protect our home with a clear head. Dary couldn't help but smile through his teary eyes. That was Ayasaki for you. Always putting others before herself. It humbled the heir to the Black Lightning, yet also enraged him at the same time. How could the world be so fucking cruel to one whom seemingly did nothing to deserve it? I know it's just. A knock on the front door interrupted him. A bit thankful, he excused himself to go answer it. Dary took a look around at his small condo. He had to admit, he had it pretty made, being one of the village's elite jounin. His 3-bedroom complex had all the necessary accommodations he needed, and he'd finally purchased it after saving enough raya from all the missions he had gone on. It was strange to get a knock on the door, however. Very few people even knew, or even cared, where he lived. With a shrug, he kept his guard up, as he turned the knob to see a visitor who was near the bottom of the people he had expected to see. Standing in his doorway was the Bolt Commander himself. Dary blinked. Isa Sadesho, Supreme Commander, he exclaimed in sheer surprise and shock. Isa rubbed the back of his head a bit sheepishly. Sorry I'm late, Dary. I was lost among the clouds, he explained to a confused, ashen-haired jounin. Late? I never knew you were coming, he bluntly stated, owlishly blinking. Isa blinked. Wait, your sister didn't tell you? Dary rose an eyebrow. Tell me what? Isa groaned a bit, shaking his head. Oh, Ayasaki-chan, you did that on purpose, didn't you? He mused aloud, with Dary only raising an eyebrow. Look, can I come in? He asked politely. Dary shrugged and stepped aside, allowing the Bolt leader to step through. Isa whistled in awe. Wow, you've really bought a lot of new stuff since the last time I was here. There was definitely some furniture here that he didn't recognize. Dary shut the door and agreed. Yeah, I guess I kind of went into a shopping spree to make sure my sister was comfortable after. Well, you know, the solemn tone told all. I know, Isa frowned. Anyhow, where is she? Dary pointed to a back room. Isa nodded his thanks and made his way toward the direction he pointed out. He had to duck a bit, due to his height, but he crept a bit through the door. Ayasaki-chan? He whispered, in case she was asleep. Ayasaki recognized his voice immediately. Isa-kun. She cried out in joy as she willed herself out of bed to give the elite shinobi a hug. He laughed a bit, and gave her a hug back, picking the teenager up and holding her. "Told you I wouldn't break my promise," he whispered in her ear. Due to his duties as leader of the village's Black Operations Squad, he rarely got a free moment to see her. He had promised her over 3 months ago that he'd visit as much as he could. Ayasaki cried tears of joy as she buried her face in his chest as well as wrapping her arms around his neck. "I knew you would. I never lost faith in you," she told him as he held close the girl who was like a sister to him. Now he began on a light-hearted note. "You didn't tell him I was coming on purpose, didn't you?" Ayasaki smirked knowingly. "Oh, Isa-kun, I have no idea what you're talking about," she chimed, feigning ignorance. Tsk, he clucked his teeth, not buying it. Her only response was to giggle. "You know I love giving surprises to my Nai-san." "Is that so?" Darui asked in a deadpan, coming into the room and shaking his head. "You know I hate surprises," he lamely added, shifting his hands in his pockets as his facial expression became lazy again. "Only when it's from me," she argued, sticking her tongue out. "A fair point," he conceded. Still haven't beaten your sister in a game of logic yet, Darui?" Isa smirked, remembering all the times she had stumped the poor jounin. Poor guy couldn't catch a break. Yeah, he grumbled. "Now could you please let my sister down? I don't like her being held like that for too long." Isa frowned, but nonetheless complied with Darui's request. True, he did outrank him threefold, but he wasn't about to be an asshole to just say no to a brother's request when it came to his terminally ill sister. He gently lay her down and kissed her forehead, causing the dark-skinned girl to blush profusely. "You rest now, okay? I have to talk to your brother." She simply nodded and rested her head back on the pillow and closed her eyes. She had a big grin on her face, of which Darui had no doubt the reason. The boat leader turned to the jounin, lightheartedness foregone. "Come. We should talk in the living room." Darui complied, following Isa out, sparing one glance back at his smiling sibling. He relaxed a bit and gently closed the door. "So, what is it?" Darui questioned, getting straight to the point. "To be frank, Darui, I need your help in defeating the ultranationalists. Reikage-sama says you know a thing or two about political muscle, in which I have little experience," Isa pleaded without preamble. Darui looked away. "Sadesho, you know how I feel about politics," he admitted. Darui officially was just registered as an independent voter, and despite how much he respected Killer A, he completely refused to register as a United Cloud member. He felt that if he officially took a side, that he'd be obligated to vote them in all the time. Isa sighed. "Yes, I know, but think of the village. You know what will happen if they gain any more seats on the council." "I know that," Darui yelled in anger. "You don't think I'm scared? What those bastards might do? Install fascism, false national pride, hatred, bigotry, likely even social Darwinism." He shuddered at that last thought. "They might even kill my—" He couldn't bring himself to say it. "Darui, I know," Isa said calmly. "But if you want to save your sister from living in a hell they'll install, I'll need your help." "What good is that if I betray my own principles?" he shouted angrily. "What good are those principles if your sister ends up dead because you refuse to act?" Isa countered, turning away from him. That statement sent shockwaves through the jounin. Various scenarios started to play out in his head as he saw Hideyoshi overlooking a burning Kumogakure, where his sister was ordered to be executed because she was dead weight and of no use to the new regime. He clenched his fists. "I see," Darui said as the realization dawned on him. He made a promise that he would protect his sister at all costs. If that meant he had to step into the ugly game of politics, then so be it. "I'll help," he softly declared. Isa nodded in gratitude. "Thank you, Darui. I'm sure your old sensei would be proud to preserve the village that stood tall in the clouds." The Sandame Reikage, in addition to teaching him his black lightning techniques, also taught the boy everything he knew now about the political underground tactics that were employed throughout the village. Isa had his own views, sure, but he was a military tactician and strategist first and foremost, which is why they needed each other. Darui knew the information, and Isa could conjure up a strategy to counter it. "I'm sure he would be," he neutrally said, not liking to speak of his old sensei as the wound from his loss was still fresh to the air. "All right, meet me at the base sometime this week, whenever you're free. I still have things to take care of, on my end," Isa ordered. Darui nodded. "I will." Isa had turned to leave before Darui's voice stopped him again. "Sadesho," he turned his head. "What is it?" "I'm sorry about my short burst of anger, I meant no disrespect," he uttered apologetically. Isa waved him off and smiled. "Don't worry about it. You had a perfectly valid reason for doing so. Just learn to control it, all right?" Darui nodded. "I will take care, Sadesho." Isa said his goodbyes and quietly left out of the front door. The jounin went back to his sister's room to see her sound asleep. "Ayasaki, no matter what happens, I'll always be there for you, even if it means turning against my own codes." Perhaps, if Darui was a bit more attentive, he would have noticed the slightest twitch of a smile on his sibling's face. Akechi clan household, 2,100 hours. Akira ran through the clan estate like a bat out of hell, racing towards her father's study. This was big, and he needed to know right away. To hell if he was meeting with the clan elders. He'd probably kill her for not informing him of such a huge development. She turned the corner, nearly slipping in her slightly panicked state. She could hear the voices of the elders and her father as they were discussing things she couldn't have cared less about at the moment. Without even bothering to knock, she slid the door open, a bit out of breath. All 7 of the elders, plus Hideyoshi, turned to glare at her for the interruption. "Akira!" Hideyoshi growled. "What is the meaning of this?" She quickly bowed as low as she could. "1,000 apologies, Hideyoshi-sama, but I bring important news." Hideyoshi raised an eyebrow, but that didn't mean he was less intimidating to his daughter. "Have you found our generous donors' identities?" She shook her head. "No. Better than that. Our members have caught 2 Konoha Black Ops shinobi. They appear to have been trying to sabotage our plans." That statement caused all hell to break loose. Uchiha Estate, 3 months later, 1,300 hours. Mikoto sat in an elevated position on the top of one of the highest tree branches, in the small forest inside the Uchiha training grounds. She was using a highly advanced cloaking technique that her husband had taught her. Fugaka had copied the jutsu with his Sharingan a decade ago during the Third Great Shinobi World War with the Wagakure. "My Seigakure no Jutsu, chameleon technique," she whispered as the light started to abnormally refract around her, hiding both her shadow and scent. "I wonder how long they'll last against my clone." Only one way to find out, she mused, as she continued to observe. Meanwhile, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke stood in Manji formation, each with their backs toward one another. Physically, there wasn't too much of a difference, except for 8-year-olds. They didn't look as frail as they did 3 months ago. Naruto had gained an inch in height, putting him on equal footing with his raven-haired best friend. Mikoto had to beat a proper diet in him literally. As for Sakura, although she still was for intents and purposes girly, she had ditched her hair bow, and had a tomboyish mix with her personality. The Uchiha and the Haruno were panting heavily, with the only thing keeping Sakura from fainting from exhaustion was sheer willpower to prove her worth. Naruto, however, despite Mikoto's brutal training, still acted like he had energy to spare. "Damn," Naruto Sasuke thought, inhaling in and out at as much of an even pace as he could. "Just where the hell do you get all this energy from?" Sasuke thought. When his mother said she'd put them through hell, she wasn't kidding. All 3 tensed up, hearing a distortion in the bushes nearby. Sakura, on impulse, threw a shuriken, dead on at the direction the sound came from. The 3 waited, not a single sound. Sweat rolled down Naruto's brow as he focused his eyesight. A small river of blood started to run across the soil. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Seems you killed a wild animal," Naruto whispered. Sakura grimaced, but said nothing. She was still trying to get used to the idea that she'd have to kill a human being in cold blood someday. Killing animals, even by accident, didn't sit well with her. The rosette-haired civilian sighed. She'd just have to cross that bridge when she came to it. "Okay, Mikoto-sensei is just toying with us, obviously," Sakura huffed while speaking up. Sasuke nodded. "I wouldn't doubt it. Sakura, you have enough chakra to do another chakra hankiri?" he inquired, hopeful. Out of the trinity of friends, Sakura, hands down, had the best chakra control. She had completed the exercise of finding the stones Mikoto had hidden across the training grounds. Sasuke had completed it, with some difficulty, about 4 hours later. As for Naruto, Mikoto sat attentive as she watched her pupils to try and perfect the technique that she had taught them. So far, they were doing pretty well. "Naruto-kun, considering how much chakra you have, the amount of control you have is astonishing," the Uchiha matriarch thought in amazement. By all means, his chakra control should be utterly abysmal, and it should have taken him a week to find even 1 stone. He was just one surprise after the other. The Kyuubi, watching from the outside, easily saw through her stoic face, and snorted. She really couldn't figure it out. "It's simple, Uchiha," he began in monologue to himself. "Your state of mind and brain activity also affects how well you can control chakra at any given time, or overall." To him, it was the easiest thing in the world to figure out. With the suppression seal off, Naruto's mind was clear and calm, and despite keeping some of his old personality quirks, most of his goofy side was gone. Had it still been on, it would have been even harder for the blonde to control his chakra. Add to the fact that he actually had a brain in that thick skull of his, the boy grasped concepts much easier and in turn applied them to real life. I wonder if it'd be a stretch to say he'd learn at the rate of a prodigy. The Vulpine mused a bit before waving a paw. No matter. It's too early to tell either way. Naruto, however, was busy concentrating on trying to thin his large net of chakra as it spread across the training ground. "I've got to concentrate," the blonde told himself repeatedly. His chakra web had been so large that it dwarfed his friends by so much that it had nearly cancelled them out. They had the hurdle of not only finding the stones, but also dealing with Naruto's overlapping chakra. Naruto grunted a bit in frustration. Damn, was finding these stones one at a time, proving to be a pain in the ass. Naruto then froze. Wait a minute. His eyes widened in realization. Could it really have been that simple? Only one way to find out. He grinned inwardly and outwardly. Mikoto raised an eyebrow. What's he grinning about? Her eyes immediately shot up in surprise and shock. Naruto released more chakra, instead of less. This alarmed her, and due to the echolation, Sasuke and Sakura felt it too, and stopped their use of the Hankiri. They both stared at the blonde in disbelief. Said blonde had no idea that all eyes were on him, as he concentrated on spreading his signature across the entire meadow. The grass nearby was starting to blow, as it were being jolted by the wind. The three had to cover their eyes or debris would have surely caught in between them. Naruto-kun, just where are you getting this amount of chakra from? Sakura thought, covering her eyes. It was over as fast as it had begun, as the grass started to settle and Mikoto felt his chakra suppressing itself as well as thinning. She was about to voice her concern, until Naruto opened his eyes and smirked at her. 1. Underpass, 2 by the shack, 3 in the garden near the roses, 4 also in the garden by the violets, 5 near the back door of the kitchen, 6 by the window, 7 near the lake, 8 in the water itself, and finally 9 behind you. He counted off, giving her a slight smug look. Did I miss anything? Mikoto sat there jaw agape in stunned silence. How? She stuttered out. Naruto grinned. Mikoto-sensei, I was going about it the wrong way. See, all this time I was trying to spread my signature and then try to thin it, and then I'd search for the stones. But the Hankyurai doesn't work like that. Well, at least for me. All three listened intently at Naruto's explanation. The chakra Hankyurai is an echolation, not a find me sort of thing. I simply spread my chakra around the field so much that all of the stones' locations started echoing back to me. Seeing as I already had the location of the stones, I lessened the amount of chakra I was outputting, which thinned my signature automatically. However, this method likely only works on objects with chakra, and living things that have chakra in them. I need an echo for this to work, so in the future to find inanimate objects, I'll likely have to master this jutsu even more, while Sasuke said simply. His mother and Sakura nodded dumbly, definitely sharing the Uchiha Scion's sentiment. Naruto-kun is so amazing. Sakura smiled in admiration. Wow, Naruto-kun, even I haven't thought of using the jutsu like that, she admitted, although in her mind she was a little ashamed of herself. Great, an 8-year-old improvising on a jutsu to overcome his handicap, and I'm 35 years old, and have known the jutsu for half of my life. The gods must hate me, but really though, how the heck do you have so much chakra? Sasuke had asked the question Naruto had been dreading. His eyes shifted to Mikoto, and he could tell gears were rapidly spinning in her head, too. Then, without thinking, it might be a family trait that I inherited, who knows? Naruto mentally slapped himself. A family trait? Seriously? They wouldn't buy that in a million years. Then that would make sense, then, Sakura agreed, contemplating in deep thought. No normal guy your age can disperse that much chakra, I think. She was purely speculating at this point. Yeah, you're probably right. It has to be some sort of bloodline, came the raven-haired male's agreement. Inwardly, Mikoto and Naruto sighed in relief, thankful that the two had bought it. Damn, close call. That excuse will do for now at least. Mikoto looked at the three of them. The bloodline excuse, Naruto? The irony, you don't know how close you are to the truth, albeit a bit wrong on the terminology. The matriarch thought as the image of the Yondaime Hokage came to her head. They continued meditating for the rest of that day. Sakura hummed to herself. I'm not sure, my reserves are pretty low right now. Even with my control, I don't think I can manage one. Sorry, she said apologetically. Sasuke grunted, clearly a bit annoyed. Damn, okay Naruto, please tell me you have an idea, because I'm fresh out at the moment. I'm thinking. Naruto half-shouted back towards his best friend in irritation. They had been at this for nearly 2 hours. He was hungry, a bit pissed off, and his friends were slowing down. He placed his right index finger on the ground, and whispered. Chakra Hankyurai. Not even within a second of doing so, his eyes widened. Clear! He shouted, and the three of them jumped into the branches as several kunai with explosive tags took their place. It was a small yield, and it wouldn't have killed them, but the explosion was still loud enough for their ears to ring. Sakura looked at the other two, and made a few hand signals pointing to the smoke. Sasuke squinted his eyes, and he saw a silhouette, a human one. He glanced over and Naruto nodded, smirking, an expression which he returned. They nodded, understanding each other completely, as the trio jumped from their respective branches. 3 kunai soared through the air, aiming to hit their targets. 3 clangs were heard as the 3 landed on the ground in crouched positions, panting. They were proud of themselves. They heard the sound of steel touching steel a while ago. It was a good indicator that their accuracy was dead on, forcing her to block instead of dodging like she usually did. Mikoto's clone walked out, casually, clapping her hands. The 3 visibly relaxed, while Naruto's mouth twitched. Good job, you 3. You lasted a lot longer than I expected, she admitted, while praising the trio of 8-year-olds, who smiled with pride. Unfortunately, she began with a frown, you still weren't able to get me. All 3 of them smirked. Oh, Mikoto-sensei, didn't you always say not to let our guard down? Sakura chimed, as Naruto and Sasuke made a hand seal and they jumped away. Mikoto looked confused before looking down. 3 kunai were embedded in the ground, which she recognized as the kunai she had blocked earlier. Her eyes widened once she saw what was attached to them, explosive tags. The clone tried to jump out of the way, but it was too late as the resulting explosion engulfed the Kage Bunshin and it disappeared in a puff of smoke. All right! Naruto exclaimed, pumping his fist in the air. We got her. Nice job, team, he said as all three high-fived each other. That was a ballsy move, Sakura, and I didn't think it would work, Sasuke praised, much to the rosette-haired girl's embarrassment. Hey! I was getting desperate. That was poorly put together at the last minute, she modestly defended. She had sent them signals not only to attack together, but to attach explosive tags to the handles of the kunai they had thrown. Sasuke shrugged, still on cloud 9 from their triumphant victory. Naruto was simply grinning ear to ear. We make an awesome team, you know that? Indeed we do, Naruto-kun. Sakura was cut off as she felt a bit dizzy, and would have fallen flat on her face to the ground had Naruto not caught her. Whoa! Sakura-chan, you okay? He asked worriedly. Why yeah, I'm fine, she stammered out, inhaling deeply. She must be exhausted, Sasuke deduced, to which Naruto agreed. He positioned himself so that the shorter girl was on his back. Naruto-kun! She exclaimed in surprise. What are you doing? Sakura-chan, you're too tired to get back on your own, he said simply. Sakura frowned and sighed. No, I can't. No, you can't. There was a tone of finality in the Jinchuriki's voice. A few moments passed before she nodded in acceptance. Let's head back, Sasuke suggested. Naruto bobbed his head. Hold on, he told Sakura as he used some extra leg strength to compensate for Sakura's weight. She allowed herself to lay her head on his back, fully content with a smile on her face after a few seconds of traveling. The three were in a reflective silence as they jumped through the trees. The training was oftentimes brutal, but the results spoke for themselves. They had managed to outsmart their sensei, rather than defeat her with brute force. Granted, she was a jounin, and if she wanted, she could crush the three of them like ants with her hands tied behind her back. Even still, they felt pride, and it motivated them enough to get through in spite of the hurdles. I'm really impressed, you three. Naruto and Sasuke stopped suddenly, and Mikoto seemed to decloak like a chameleon as she deactivated her Maisegekyo no Jutsu. Whoa! You got to teach us how to do that, Naruto nearly demanded. Mikoto laughed. Oh, this jutsu is far too advanced for you guys, but I'll tell you what, I do plan on teaching you all a jutsu, hopefully before you all go to the academy. Naruto was practically drooling at the prospect, while Sasuke was just content with a smile on his face. Thing is, we got to get sleeping beauties, she pointed towards an unconscious Sakura, sleeping peacefully on Naruto's back, stamina and chakra reserves up. This jutsu isn't really even taught to genin yet. Sasuke raised a brow, curiously. She wasn't talking about that jutsu, was she? Before he could ask, she continued on. Now then, you three head inside, and get ready for lunch. I know you're starving. Sounds great, Ka-san, Sasuke cheerfully remarked. The two headed wordlessly back into the estate kitchen. They'd wake Sakura up when they got there, Mikoto sighed before she felt a familiar presence behind her. So, what do I owe the pleasure of you visiting, my dear husband? The sarcasm was practically dripping from her voice. Mikoto, she turned around, and sure enough, standing there was Fugaku Uchiha, father of Sasuke and Itachi, and husband of Mikoto. Honestly, he looked nothing like his sons with his gruff appearance, as they took more after their mother than they did him, a fact that he was a bit resentful for, but he never voiced that. What is it that you want, Fugaku? She asked a bit coldly. Mikoto loved her husband, she truly did, but some of his actions as of late disgusted the Uchiha matriarch to no end, how he put Itachi on a pedestal, and outright ignored his younger son. This meant she had to pick up the scraps and slowly but surely pick his self-esteem back up. Admittedly, the lack of sex in a good long while also added to the reasons why she didn't feel like speaking to him at the moment. I see you're training a team, he began neutrally, arms crossed over his chest, that has Sasuke, a civilian girl, and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Mikoto's eyes narrowed dangerously. He has a name, you know, Fugaku, she stated, a dark edge beginning to line her voice. One had to give the Uchiha clan head credit. If he was afraid of women when they were angry, you could never tell from his facial expressions. Naruto, then, the clan head finally conceded. Although Mikoto wanted to smile at her victory, she was still pissed at him, so she remained expressionless. I couldn't help but overhear you when you said you promised to teach them a jutsu not suited for genin, he continued, eyes narrowing. You wouldn't happen to be referring to that jutsu, would you? Yes, she edgily answered. I'm going to teach all three of them the Gakakyu no Jutsu, Grand Fireball technique. I see, he neutrally intoned, giving a sidelong look. She crossed her arms, mimicking her conjugal spouse. From the way you're acting, it sounds to me like you have a problem with it. Mikoto, that jutsu is symbolic within our clan. How could you just teach it to them on a whim? The Uchiha practically yelled. His wife stood there, unfazed by his small rant. So I guess you have a problem with most of the village's chunin, since virtually all of the jounin and Anbu and Hokage-sama himself knowing it too, huh? She rhetorically quipped. Furthermore, isn't performing the technique a rite of passage? If anything, you should feel proud to have your son learn this technique at such a young age. Her eyes then grew to slits. Or is it you feel prideful about the fact that I'm teaching them a jutsu that's symbolic with us? Her husband's silence told all. She sneered. I see. So it is your pride. For the first time, Fugaku showed anger. Just who the hell do you think you are? He roared. He was the head of the Uchiha clan, and he'd be damned if he'd let his own wife talk down to him. Mikoto gritted her teeth. Fugaku! She yelled, annoyed with her husband's subtle misogyny. Just what the hell has happened to the man I fell in love with over 15 years ago? Tell me, Fugaku! What is with your obsession with the clan's image? Do you not understand what we've gone through? Image must mean everything, he argued. Is that so? You want our clan to be viewed as powerful, and yet you neglect your own flesh and blood, favoring one over the other? When spending time with both could kill two birds with one stone. Fugaku, admittedly, knew she had a point, but his pride made him refuse to back down. You know why I had to mold Itachi. He was a prodigy. I had to groom him into the perfect Uchiha and shinobi. He then scoffed. Let's not forget, you could have trained Sasuke, too, but you never even offered to help yourself. Oh no! You are not going to blame this on me, she stubbornly retorted, even though he had a fair point. You are his father, you were supposed to teach him everything you knew, and you were supposed to give them both equal amounts of time. I may be his mother, but I can only do so much, he gritted his teeth. Aren't you training him now? The Uchiha matriarch scoffed. Yeah, cleaning up the mess you made, Fugaku huffed, but said nothing in return. He felt her embrace as she laid her head on his left pectoral. The clan head was left stunned by his wife's actions, but she spoke before he could voice his thoughts. Fugaku, she began softly, all traces of anger gone, you can still make it right. It's not too late. I'm training Sasuke, yes, and his new friends, but there are certain things only you, as a man, can teach. He couldn't help but notice her emphasis on that particular word. The patriarch couldn't help but smirk. She was stroking his ego to make her do what she wanted, and damn it, it was working like a charm. She let go and husband and wife stared at each other, although still in each other's arms. He sighed. Mikoto he was at a loss for words. Don't know what to do or say, she deduced. With a look of dull surprise, he simply nodded. Well, to start off, get to know him. You don't have to do anything big, just have a conversation with him. Ask him how his day was, what he liked to do, things of that nature. Mikoto, you know I don't. I know. He's not like Itachi, Fugaku, she sternly interrupted. True, he's interested in becoming a shinobi, but that's not all he likes to do. Then what does he like to do then? Fugaku asked, hopeful he'd have a possibility of taking the lazy way out. His wife's grin turned into an outright smirk. That, my love, is up to you to figure out, she emphasized by poking him in the chest playfully. Fugaku sighed, even though he knew he should have suspected this. He then nodded in acceptance. All right, he conceded, but could you give me a bit of time? She shrugged. I don't care. As long you make some genuine effort, I suppose one doesn't matter. But her eyes gave her other half a gaze filled with warning. Don't take too long, Fugaku. Every child has a breaking point. You, of all people, should know that. Fugaku bobbed his head, understanding perfectly what she meant. She walked up to him and gave him a quick peck on the cheek. Just think about it, okay? With that said, the matriarch headed off, eager to feed her son and pupils for a job well done. She felt proud of herself, and maybe now Sasuke could get what he always wanted, his father's attention. Fugaku stood there in reflective silence as he contemplated what his wife was saying as their argument replayed over and over in his mind. Had he really been that blind and neglectful toward his younger son? He wanted the village to see the greatness of the Uchiha clan. While they had respect, it wasn't enough for the clan head. He wanted it to be near worship, just like their Senju rivals of a different age. But is it worth it? Fugaku reflected, still at a loss. What is truly worth it? He was putting his sons in danger, and if his plan failed, then there was a chance that his life and his sons were forfeit. But then again, the higher-ups never trusted his clan. Hell, they probably thought that the Demon Fox attack was their doing, being forced to move away, being spied on persistently by the village's A and BU. He gritted his teeth. What the hell was he supposed to do? There were pros and cons to both going through with the plan and scrapping it all together, with easily justifiable reasons for both of them, in his eyes. Add to the fact that his own wife was ignorant to what the clan was planning, and he had hell to deal with by teetering on the edge of a sword. He sighed and threw his hands up in defeat. He had much to think about. Maybe he'd talk with the elders and see what they thought. He took a stroll back to the estate, but headed straight for his private quarters rather than the kitchen. I'm sorry, Sasuke, but you're going to have to take a back seat for a while until I figure out what I'm going to do, Fugaku thought remorsefully. At that moment, he truly hated himself. Mikoto was right. Just what the hell did happen to the man he used to be? He'd have plenty of time to mull it over. Inside the kitchen, around the same time. Ah man, I'm starving, Naruto complained as he sat with his three friends at a small table. Although all three didn't smell well from all the hard training they had done today, their stomachs took priority over a foul odor at this particular moment. Sakura giggled, but she did have to agree. The cherry blossom was pretty famished, herself. She felt a bit embarrassed that she had to be carried all the way back to the estate, but alas, it couldn't be helped. That just proved she had to work harder. Naruto and Sasuke started talking amongst themselves, while she allowed herself to drown in her thoughts. It was strange, for the past 3 months, Tetsuya had left her alone. He hadn't made any attempt to touch her, or anything of that nature. In fact, the retired shinobi just flat out ignored her. A small chill went up her spine. She had come to be used to his tantrums and perverse ways, and for him to just suddenly stop, just simply rubbed her the wrong way. Sakura felt as if he were a simple viper coiled up in the grass waiting to slip its venom in her the moment she let down her guard. That's not going to happen, she thought, determined. Tender-hearted, the rosette-haired female was, but she was absolutely not going to let him get away with what he did to her. In her eyes, it was something completely unforgivable. She'd bide her time and she, too, like a serpent, would strike her prey when the moment was convenient. Only this time, this snake would constrict her victim until there was nothing left to. Hey Sakura, are you okay? Sasuke inquired, frowning a bit and breaking the girl's sadistic thoughts of reprisal. She shook her head, blushing a bit. Oh, sorry, I was just spacing out. You've been doing that a lot lately, Sakura-chan, Naruto observed. You tried being sexually abused and in not coming to the forefront of your mind periodically from time to time, she thought a bit bitterly, before shaking her head. Oh, it's nothing, you guys, really. I was just having one of those moments. Naruto shrugged, not really in the mood to press the matter at the moment. If you say so, he gave in to not broach the subject any further. Sasuke, however, wasn't having it. He was about to semi-interrogate his female companion, before his mom came in with a fresh lunch. The trio was practically drooling at the sight as it was placed in front of them. There was one huge bowl of rice, 4 bowls of ramen, 5 sticks of sushi, and a loaf of bread. There were 4 plates, one for each of them. The Uchiha matriarch smiled as she sat down with her pupils opposite the side of them. Dig in, you 3! She exclaimed joyfully. Whoa! Mikoto-sensei! How'd you prepare all this food so quickly? Sakura asked in bewilderment. Oh, Sakura-chan, she wagged her index finger. I'm afraid that's a trade secret, she grinned knowingly. Sasuke didn't look amused. You prepared it a while ago, and you just heated it up with a katon jutsu, didn't you? He deadpanned, calling her out. Mikoto got an annoyed twitch on her face, as she was caught red-handed. The male Uchiha simply smirked. Damn, I'm good, he thought, completely satisfied. Oh, who cares, Sasuke? I'm just ready to eat. Naruto hungrily bellowed. See? Naruto-kun doesn't care how I cook my meals, Mikoto sweetly chimed. Sakura just shook her head at their antics. Okay, you guys dig in, she premised. Itadakimasu. They all chorused before grabbing food and they began stuffing themselves like they hadn't eaten for days. Even the mannered Sakura tossed dinner etiquette out the window in favor of satisfying her stomach. Oh man, Naruto said, slurping his noodles like they were about to jump out of the bowl and flee. This stuff is great, sensei, Mikoto smiled. I'm glad you guys like it. You earned it after a job well done today. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting you to dispel my clone, at all. You've surpassed my expectations. I'm proud of you 3. The trio beamed at the praise. Thank you, sensei. They chorused again, with even Sasuke calling his mom sensei. Sensei Naruto began sitting down his plate and getting a serious look on his face. Mikoto noticed this and raised an eyebrow. Yes, Naruto-kun? Do you have any experience with kenjutsu? Specifically a katana? Naruto inquired in a dead serious tone of voice. Mikoto blinked. It was clear whatever she was expecting, it sure as hell wasn't that. Oh wow, she blinked again in surprise. Before I answer that, may I ask why? Well, Naruto said, pondering for a bit. We were reading about Kyumo in the library a few months ago, and I was fascinated that a good majority of their shinobi were swordsmen and kenjutsu practitioners. I want to be ready for anything should I go toe-to-toe with a Kyumo shinobi in the future. And, he grinned, swords are just freaking cool. Mikoto had to laugh at the boy's enthusiasm and reasoning. I take it you two have known about this? From the beginning, sensei, Sakura answered. She hummed. I see, she responded neutrally. Naruto gulped a bit. Well, Naruto, you're in luck. I do have experience in the bladed arts. Naruto shot up from the table, excitedly. Wahoo! He chimed. But I don't want you using a katana, she flatly declared, causing Naruto to sit back in his seat rather disappointed. Ah! He groaned. Why not? He asked, trying to keep his voice as even as he could. Well, mainly because a katana is way too long for you at your age, and its weight as well. You'd be better off using a kodachi for right now, and then working your way up to a katana when you're older, and she giggled. Taller, she finished. Naruto grumbled under his breath, an action which caused his friends to laugh. Oh, cheer up, Naruto. You'll get taller for sure, Sakura said, reassuring him by giving him a hug. That means a lot, Sakura-chan, he thanked her, blushing a bit at the contact. Mikoto raised an eyebrow, and was inwardly grinning. Oh, I can totally see where this is going down the line. But that is for another time. So what's the difference between a kodachi and a katana? Sasuke asked, a bit interested in the subject matter for knowledge's sake. He wasn't interested in becoming a swordsman. Hell, he probably wouldn't use any weapon, unless it fitted him extremely well. A katana is simply a standard weapon used by samurai, commonly found in Tetsu no Kuni, the land of iron, that you're all familiar with, Mikoto explained. However, a kodachi is a much smaller blade, about a third of the length of the katana. So, since you're saying that you want Naruto-kun to use a kodachi instead, I assume most of the techniques should theoretically be the same, except the swordsman instead must compensate for the weight for different types of swords? Sakura deduced. The Uchiha adult nodded. Indeed. However, there are certain styles that are suited for certain blades, and seldom do they work as well with any other type. Kaiten Kenbu, for example, is a style that emphasizes dual kodachi, using their light weight for faster attack power. Is there a way you can make a kodachi weigh as much as a katana? Naruto asked hopefully. Mikoto pondered on it for a bit. Well, possibly. We'll have to see one of the village's blacksmiths, she replied before seeing the blonde's grin. And no, we're not going until you three enter the academy. I still have much left to teach you. You do all want to blow the competition away, am I right? Naruto frowned, but nonetheless understood as he and his jade and onyx-eyed companions nodded. Sensei, just how are you so knowledgeable in kenjutsu? Came the query from the curious Cherry Blossom. Sakura-chan, it's easy. When I was a jounin, I was considered a jack of all trades when it came to weapon arts. Whoa, hold up, time out. Sasuke held out his hand in a T-shaped position. Since when were you a weapons specialist, Ka-san? By the gods, he knew practically nothing about his mom when it came down to the nitty-gritty details. Mikoto's face was impassive. I'm an Uchiha, she said, looking off a bit distantly. But the Sharingan doesn't awaken in female members of the clan. The three could tell there was a bit of resentment in her voice. The trio wisely kept their mouths shut. As such, I had to stand out in other ways, so I became a weapons specialist and learned as many jutsu as I could. While I'm not a particular expert with any one type, I can use them proficiently enough to hold my own in battle as well as to teach others. Sakura nodded. I see, she replied neutrally. What about Bojutsu? That earned curious looks from her two male companions. It was clear that this was the first time they were hearing of this. For the third time today, Mikoto sat dumbstruck with surprise. Bojutsu? Wow, she noticed the look on Sakura's face. You're serious, aren't you? The rosette-haired girl simply bobbed her head. Well, she began, while I'm not as good with the staff as I am with swords and bladed weapons, I do know enough to set you on the right path. Sakura beamed. Thank you so much, sensei. She thanked, grinning. Mikoto smiled and nodded and turned to her son. I take it you want to learn how to use a weapon too? Sasuke shook his head. Actually, no, Ka-san, he responded, which genuinely surprised his mother. I mean, it's not that I'm totally against having a weapon, far from it. But I want to have a weapon that fits me, if I were to ever choose to wield one. A kodachi or staff doesn't really suit me, so he then shrugged. We'll just have to wait and see. I see, came her neutral response. Well then, how about we? She stopped immediately after feeling a familiar presence. Strangely, her pupils picked up on it too. Are they really advancing this quickly? Just what the hell are these three? Mikoto thought in pure bewilderment. A young man of about average height stepped into the room with a curious look on his face. He looked nearly identical to Sasuke except for his hairstyle being in a ponytail, and two scars running at a 45-degree angle on either side of the top of the bridge of his nose all the way to his cheeks. Itachi-kun! Mikoto called out in surprise. Standing there was none other than the Uchiha prodigy himself, Itachi Uchiha. Itachi and I-san! Sasuke cried, getting up and hugging his older brother. The ANBU captain smiled and hugged his brother back. It's good to you too, Sasuke, he quipped in a mysterious voice. Itachi turned his attention to the two unfamiliar faces. Well, really one, that sat at the kitchen table. I see a lot has happened in the 3 months I've been gone, the elder Uchiha brother blankly noted. Yes, Itachi-kun, it has, she confirmed. Meet my newest well-only set of pupils, Naruto Uzumaki, Itachi-san. Naruto introduced himself. Nice to meet you, Uzumaki-san, Itachi said politely, although already knowing who he was. The whisker-like birthmarks on his cheeks practically gave away his uniqueness. Sakura Haruno, Itachi-san. Sasuke-kun has told us a lot about you, Sakura revealed. The Uchiha raised an amused eyebrow. Oh, he has? He chuckled, poking Sasuke in the forehead. Foolish, little brother. Sasuke didn't look amused. Hey! Don't do that when they're around. The Uchiha scion complained, earning a healthy chuckle from all those present. Itachi-kun, will you be staying for dinner? Mikoto inquired. Itachi stood up and shook his head. He never did like huge social gatherings like this. He just wanted to do his job and have the bare minimum of contact with people. He already had enough on his plate. No, Ka-san, he said firmly. I'll eat at a later time. Right now, I just need to rest. It's been a long while since I've been home. Mikoto audibly sighed. All right then, suit yourself. She really hated how antisocial her oldest son was. Itachi said his goodbyes and walked out of the room to head toward his father's study. Your brother seems cold, Naruto dully observed. Sasuke scoffed. Thanks for stating the obvious, Naruto, like we couldn't figure that one out. The sarcasm that leaked out was obviously a form of resentment he had toward Itachi, even if they did have some sort of brotherly kinship. Is the sarcasm really necessary? Naruto grunted back. Sakura huffed, shaking her head. All right, you two stop it. Mikoto intervened before either boy could start flinging any insults. Sasuke sighed and looked at Naruto apologetically. Said blonde simply nodded, forgiving him instantly. Okay, you three, we're going to do some laps around the estate. Mikoto snickered, enjoying the looks of dread on the three children. Come on, those laps aren't going to run themselves, she smiled, getting up. With a collective sigh, the trio followed their sensei for their daily torture. Man, was this going to utterly suck. I don't trust that kid, came the voice of the QB in Naruto's head. Having long been used to him butting in his opinion at random times, the blue-eyed Uzumaki didn't even bat an eyelash. You mean Itachi? Sasuke's brother? Why's that? Naruto asked curious. He gives me a bad vibe. Like he could snap at any moment. Although Naruto had known the guy only from Sasuke's description and from meeting with him literally less than 5 minutes ago, he still had to take his tenant's feelings into account. If he were perfectly honest, he didn't feel all that comfortable with the Uchiha heir, either. He slowly nodded. All right, I'll keep a close eye on him. Good, the fox chimed, before smirking in amusement. Don't you have laps to run? The blonde simply groaned. He just had to remind him, didn't he? You freaking suck, you know that? The fox shrugged. Hey, it's your body and I'm trying to keep you alive from he heard Naruto growl. He snorted. Fine, Arasake sheesh. Damn right. Naruto replied before cutting off the mental connection with his vulpine friend. And now for hell. Root base, location unknown, time unknown. Danzo sat alone in the comfortable darkness of his throne room. Multiple thoughts, schemes, and plots circulated through the root leader's mind. These past 3 months had been hell for both his health, stress, as well as his organization as a whole. As much as he kept his composure, Danzo knew he had to find a reprieve to let some of this frustration out in the wild. It was unhealthy, and considering none of his goals had been met, he needed to live until those were accomplished. How sickening, I feel like a big hypocrite as my old rival, as he then chuckled at the irony. Well, I guess that's something we do have in common. The dark room pulsated a bit as the rusty pipelines running sewage and various night crawlers were the only sounds he could hear in the near-deafening silent room. Truthfully, the crippled veteran almost wished he had let Hiruzen in on the loop with the ultranationalists, and what they were planning. Then the plot with the Uchiha came out of nowhere, and added another twist that threw him off balance. Every last one of his operatives started working around the clock to make sure Konoha was safe, abroad and domestically. At the moment, he couldn't decide who the bigger threat was. On one hand, he had the Uchiha clan, likely planning a rebellion. The consequences of such an action would be catastrophic, to put it lightly. Such a coup would plunge the village into dangerous civil war, one where